Along perilously steep paths, Black Rayla led the Queen and company towards Mahakam, the dwarven homeland. There, among snow-capped peaks, someone awaited.
Rayla, you brought strangers?
Gabor, I present to you me, Queen of Lyrie and Rivie.
Ah, a queen. Criminals. Well then.
A large shadow swept across the sky. The dwarf swallowed the rest of his greeting as all raised their gazes to see a dragon soar swiftly toward Mount Mahakam.
Elders, don't be afraid. He is dead to us.
The dwarf had broken the silence gently, he himself quite familiar with this altogether unusual sight.
And now, sit yourselves down before the pottage goes cold. Aye. Oh, but... Fluke. Drake. Stone shriveling marvel, innit? Makes you almost sad the lizards are dying out.
Should you not worry more about the fate of your brethren? That creature will soon have all Mahakam aflame.
Ha ha! Countless? No! He's lived here centuries! Harmless for the most part! No! Your Grace, a taste?
No, none. Though your offer of repast I value, good sir.
Oh, no need of that. Gabor, please. Enchanted to make your acquaintance.
Gabor here is a true local notable, from one of Mahakam's leading clans, the Zigrigs. But then it wouldn't be our guide if it wasn't. A guide for all important guests.
A pleasure. And as I said, I thank you for your hospitality, but I've no time to feast now. I must speak to your ruler at once.
I mean no offence, but Elder Chief Riverhoods are recluse of sorts, as humans go. Didn't even mean the ones that wear crowns. But I suppose I could. Meaning, if you drafted a letter...
Her Majesty's got Demoven's signet, given willingly.
Ah, well that's a sheep of a different sort. We didn't let many human folk into Mahakam, and for good reason. So those who we let come through the second gate get blindfolded. Just after they've surrendered their arms at the first. But you've the well ring, given one of your kind confirmed trust and amity. So, we're certain we can treat you as one of our own. Elder and chiefs in the past visit. Look into his flock. Come on. No reason used to shouldn't jabber right quick.
Though the Lyrian infantry rose half an ell taller than the dwarf, he moved with remarkable ease through the waist-high snow, while those behind him slipped and stumbled on the ice-slick rocks. Meve and Rayla trailed the party, so they might speak in private.
Rayla, your aid proved an unexpected bounty.
Your Grace, to fight arm in arm with one so bold as you is an honour from which I'll not readily resign. I was to lead you to Mahakam, King Demoven's order. As to my duties afterwards, I received no instructions. So until a sealed scroll containing such arrives, I will serve your Grace under her command.
I'm content, Rayla. The times are such that no aid can I dismiss, and yours in particular.
I'm humbled, your Grace.
Let us move on. I've grown amply curious of this elder-in-chief, this brewer who...
Your Grace, I have a message for your eyes only.
A hearty Mahakam welcome to you.
What an honour! Even the arbalists salute us with cocked quarrels.
Oh, that. None too shabby as views go away.
Were it not for the howling wind, I'd make a sketch.
Meve rose slowly, her surroundings interesting to her, her ears keen to take in the cacophony of sounds. The sharp whistle of wind rushing past towering peaks, the squeak of wagon wheels rolling over frozen snow, and the roar of beasts.
What the? I dare not venture a guess.
Gabor scratched his chin.
An ice troll. Or one of them big hazard pajamas.
These beasts, are they tame? As the dragon?
Not in your life. Fierce horses, every last one. Spring cleaning year past 1 year bit my arm clear off.
The Queen's brow rose in a silent inquiry.
All right. You don't quite get content. Each spring, with the melting of the snows, a good bit of that filth comes out the ground. That's what's brewed summons all dwarves spring cleaning. We cut down as much of the filth as we can, and that means relative to calm the rest of the year.
Out of the corner of her eye, Meve noted a dark shape darting between rock formations. Calmly, she drew her sword and brandished it a time or two to warm up her stiff arms.
Seems our lot to assist you with this cleaning. Lyrians, arms at the ready. Prepare to fight.
Stop standing around like thorns on a toe. Get one. Come on! You man, don't say that! Watch out! It's rolling that way!
Oh, so man, no other way!
The chase is on!
The wails of spear shellars died down. The crowd of Mahakaman infantry parted. A dwarf stepped forth, grey as a snow fox, wrinkled as a broom. He walked with difficulty, supporting himself on a battle axe, its two heads dripping blood.
This would be our elder-in-chief, and who might your guests be, Gabor? Meve, Queen of Lyrie and Rivie, and our associates in court.
My regards, Elder. I come...
You come for something. Coins the first wager. Fighting bodies my second. Well, what is it you want? I'm on in the years, I'm not going to touch it. Yeah, you men folk. You got to fall of hard times to remember us dwarves.
I've come with a design in mind, I can't deny. But hear me out and you shall see.
She's armed! Gabor! Why the devil did you let her in here like that? I'm not a sack already! She has the leaden ring, Elder.
A gift from a king.
From Demavine, lassie, I can remember. Trust a man, give him something of value, and he'll go and give it away as easy as a sweet or gives away nuts. It's a good thing it didn't pour it. Selfish humans.
I've travelled far to see you. Hear me out, I beg you.
Let it be my loss. Go on, heave it away.
Nilfgaard has overrun my realm. It has overrun Eder. The Blackclads are at the foot of Mahakaman. They will seek to overrun your land sooner or later as well. We must act. We must react together while there is still time.
Time? But you can't time, lass. Got a little summer of 40 maybe. And you've grown up amongst dwarf folk at your age and be learning to crochet dolls. No more of that. I've seen 400 summers come and go. And I've been elder 200. And you know what I've learned in that time? That meddling your idiot scraps doesn't ever bring any good. Now, on a normal day, I'd have you all thrown clear out of this land I don't love. But you've delayed in the ring, and that grants you the right to hospitality. And here, in Mahakaman,
Laws and rights are sacred. You may stay in the past as long as you wish. Young Sigrid will serve as your guide. And once you're tired of the mountains, well, you can way down into the valleys. I bid you farewell.
My Lord Elder, with all due respect, we came to your aid. We smote the beast with you. Yet,
And to the demon's assassin.
Count Rayno.
Oh, Now, you listen well. We didn't ask for it. And you know why? Because I have my dignity. Not like some. Mates and wenches, spring cleaning is done. Beast culling's over. Muncarman beckons us home. Follow me.
Your Grace, be not dismayed. We will find a way.
Manage we shall, true. Though damned if I know how. We have none other to whom we can turn, no other land where we can flee.
Let us convene a council, Your Grace. Consider together what's to be done. We've yet Dania, Temeria.
Your Grace, might I draw your side a moment for a jab?
Raynard, please excuse me. Well, what is it you want?
I can the elder in chief, they never make a good first impression.
And the second? Is it any better?
To be quite frank, no. I'll try it. Not all is lost, trust me. Brewers are stubborn goat, no doubt about it. But a goat's to be persuaded. And I happen to think how.
Very well, I'm all ears. What must we do to stir Brewverhoop to aid us?
I might start with the thorn on our side of the beasts. A bigger thorn than most expect. See, in our never-ending search for gold, we dug deep, too deep, and reached abysses where monsters are, however they come to be. Soon as it turns a bit warm, they crawl out to feed, and there's more every year. What you saw there, the spring cleaning, that's just like the upkeep. It didn't go at the soul celebrate. Every spring we call enough, so we can live and trade and mine, not like. But there are corridors in the valleys with peaks. We're more like winter towns. So many, there's settlements that have been abandoned.
I still fail to see how this relates to myself and Brewver.
Your Majesty, slay the beasts down to the last, and you'll win the hearts of the clans, all of them. And when the clans behind you, why? The elder will have no choice. He'll bend and treat you serious. You got two sides in which waste swarm gatekeepers. There's Davos Abyss and an abandoned underground settlement called Burr's Ruff. Destroy roads, collapse the corridors. Problem solved.
You colour the solution as simple and no. Why has Brewverhoop not got the matter?
You must learn one thing about us dwarves of Hakum. Customs, traditions, why we're obsessed. Goes right for Brewverhoop. The elder delivers weeks on end. And that's I consider that if we shouldn't wear suspenders, because they may be through the side and should us forbidden. We've a set of laws, the four dwarves codex. One of its tenets says, dare you not close a corridor on one's foot. So, no self-respecting dwarf can nor will do it. But you're free with. The laws didn't eye. You've a free hand in sealing the corridors on which the beasts come, collapse them, flood them under a cannon, but solve the grief once and for all.
And this would suffice.
I believe they would. But find other ways to win the heart of the clan over itself. Do so. Can he bring no heart?
All this sounds rather toilsome, yet I do favour this delusion as other moons seeking out a court where we would first be welcomed, only later to hear another rebuke. You've my gratitude, Jackal. You've shown me a way. Very well. Let us think on these beasts. See what's to be done. I've come to the conclusion your Elder-in-Chief is not fond of guests.
Fond? That's near a quarter of it. He hates them with seething passion. But you're damned lucky.
Why's that?
Let you in, didn't he? Mahakam was cordoned off completely through the outside world for many a long year. Clans finally forced Brewer to at least let in peddlers and emissaries. Though he dragged his feet as long as he could.
You thundering dope! I told you to hold your horses or you'll shake the hitch loose.
Oh, now you're a bleeding expert, are you? You overloaded the damn cart, that's why it's busted.
A wagon lay strewn across the middle of the road. Behind it stood others, some loaded with gold, jewels, and other valuables, others groaning under barrels of pickled meat. Each dwarf had his own theory about how the accident had come about, and thundered it out to all and sundry, peppered with choice invectives.
An odd caravan.
Meve said.
They don't look like merchants.
Nah, they ain't.
Gabor answered.
Dwarves of the Ferens clan, carrying gifts for the Drake. Remember Keltilis? When he took roost here, Ferences fought him for near a century. Then the dragon got weary of fighting and they realised he weren't going nowheres, so they cut a deal. He didn't bother them. They give him what he needs.
Well, well. And these offerings they send often?
Every week. Excuse me, got to separate them lads, before they tear out each other's beards. Hey there! Cool your idiot heads!
Gabor managed to douse his brethren's fiery tempers, but the wagon still lay across the road, blocking all traffic.
Queen,
Said Xavier.
there's an easy repair. I have the tools, the parts. Need but your permission.
Of course. Go see what can be done.
Xavier did indeed make quick work of the problem. Within moments, the wagon was rolling smoothly down the road, good as new.
Well, shaft me, your highness.
Said one of the dwarves.
Your engineer's got a pate like stewed meat, but he kens his trade. That's for certain.
I'll convey your words to him. Or at least part of them.
Me and the lads will be on our way now, but first, take this. Bit of gold by way of thanks.
I appreciate the offer, but I cannot accept coin for helping a traveller in need. Common decency it is.
Huh? In our times, decency ain't common at all, but as you wish. Farewell.
The dwarf bowed in parting, shook the snow off his beard, then rejoined his caravan. Within a few moments, the wagons had disappeared around the bend. A pillar of smoke rose above the mountains, and a sooty aroma filled the air.
Fire!
Gabor said, then took a deep sniff.
Perhaps a bolt struck some barren trees.
No,
Meve said curtly.
I know that scent too well. All Edirn reeked of it. It's the smell of burning homes.
The Lyrians quickened their gait. Soon they saw a town fully aflame, and a roaring, furious dragon above.
That's your Keltimus?
Gascon asked, shielding his eyes from the sharp glare emanating from the city.
You were right. Perfectly harmless.
Dinna ken what's got his knickers in a bunch.
The dwarf said, grabbing his axe from his belt.
Queen, we got to make haste to the rescue.
Reynard!
Meve called out.
Have our men wet their cloaks for a modicum of fire protection. We move as soon as they're done.
Your Grace, they are but common soldiers. To fight a dragon.
I know, but we must help them, or at least try.
While Reynard went to pass on the order, Meve turned to Gabor.
This dragon, has it any weakness?
Fear not,
Said the somber dwarf.
except a fondness for raw meat.
Meve nodded and swallowed dryly. Despite the cold, she felt sweat pour down her scalp. Stifling her fear, Meve gave the order to attack, and her soldiers rode into the flaming city. From up close, Keltilis looked even more terrifying. Though enormous, he moved with shocking agility, like a lizard scurrying over sand. With one swing of his paw, he snapped the necks of 3 dwarves, then bisected a 4th with a powerful bite. After that, he turned his attention to the Lyrians.
More of you!
He said, twisting his bloody maw into a horrifying smile.
Good!
There's a time to reap, a time to sow, and a time to die.
has to be possible.
Your Grace, we're taking losses!
Coin never stinks, no matter how rank the pouch.
That day, many Lyrians perished, either to the dragon's all-consuming fire or to its flesh-rending claws. Yet their sacrifice was not in vain. Together with the dwarves, they were able to grievously wound Keltulis, forcing him to flee. The howls of the wounded monster rang throughout the valley.
That's right, howl, you scurvy snake! Shouldn't he ever attacked us, eh? Damn fuel lizard!
Meve, that's Vavrenik, elder of the town and all the Ferences.
My regards and condolences.
Eh, tain't so bad. If nae for ye, wouldn't there be a stone left unrubbled? To be honest, when I caught wind some human queen come to Mahakam looking for aid, I said a crocus would sprout twixt my cheeks afore I'd vote aye on that. Gonna be afeard to look in my breeches after, but changed my mind. After what I saw today, what ye did for us, you've the support and undying gratitude of all Ferences.
Thank you. Faced with a Nilfgaardian peril, that means a great deal.
Forgive me for interrupting this tear-tugging scene of interracial reconciliation, but I can't hold back no longer. Vavrenik! Double shice! What happened? Why'd Keltulis attack?
I ken as much as ye, meaning squat diddly. Just flew up, started spewing flames, half the town lit up in a flash.
Sheepshank! 300 years I've been a good neighbour.
What's done's done. Gotta think about the future. The Drake's just taking a breather. Gotta finish him off for he's regained form.
Meaning we haven't much time. He heals like an alchemist's pup. And the nearest guards are miles away. He'll be up flying again before they get here.
Aye, that's what I thought. Perhaps, your Grace, you'd,
What? Jest you must.
I ken you're tired frae the fight, dinna want to risk casualties, etc. But remember, the beast's sleeping on a bed of gold and rubies, all belonging by right to Brother, of course. But if quibbling some wandered off, he'd nae notice.
I admit that does alter my calculations. Besides, the dragon was badly wounded.
Putting it featherly, blood poured out of him like a leaky bladder. Just needs a coup de grace.
Fine. I'll do the deed.
Ken you'd see the light.
Oi, Vavrenik, Vavrenik. This lady's gonna make your rump a regular crocus garden.
Aye, Queen's doing us a great service. One that'll profit us both.
So, where is Keltulis' lair?
North through here. It's a vast cavern. Ye canna miss it.
Meve bid farewell to Vavrenik and set out on her way. Did her way lead to the dragon's lair, you ask? Shh. Let's not spoil the surprise. Keltulis' lair was indeed impossible to miss, as would stand to reason, for any space capable of containing a dragon must be enormous. The lair's maw, a black triangle cut out of a vast plain of snow, loomed from afar. Confirming the dragon's presence was the powerful odor emanating from it, one of sulfur and blood.
Well then,
Gascon said,
ready to become a legendary dragon slayer?
My father oft said, never should you count pelts till the hunt is through.
Meve said, dismounting her horse.
It's all the more true when you hunt dragons. He's wounded, yes, but one puff of flame, and we shall be not legends, but corpses. Leave all thoughts of foolhardy bravery behind.
The Lyrians crept across the dragon's threshold. They walked single file, shields raised, watched by bats hanging from the ceiling. Keltulis lay curled up on a bed of diamonds and gold coins turned red from his blood. Seeing how he strained merely to lift his massive head, Meve knew the dragon no longer posed any threat.
Come to finish
what your poison began?
The monster croaked hoarsely.
Fine. Do it then.
Keltalis turned over, exposing his vulnerable underbelly, and waited calmly for the fatal blow. Meve raised her sword high and swept it down with enormous strength, cutting the scaled belly in twain. The monster bellowed out a long roar and writhed its tail, scattering diamonds everywhere. Then grew still. Keltalis, the last red dragon between the Great Sea and the fiery mountains, had breathed his last. There followed a strange silence. No one cheered. No one clapped.
That was...
Gascon said, the first to break the silence.
not terribly epic.
What'd you expect?
Gabor said, arms akimbo.
Fanfare and fireworks. The mountain to quake. He up and died. What else would he do?
I am certain, Your Grace,
Reynard said.
that the poets will endow this moment with the appropriate splendor.
I'm sure they will,
The Queen said, sheathing her sword.
for they are liars.
The Queen told her soldiers to gather a part of the dragon's treasure. Small enough not to bring down the wrath of Bruverhoog, but large enough to fully compensate the Lyrians' losses. And Meve gained the title of Dragon Slayer, though she rarely made much mention of it.
The blizzard's blowing in. Your Grace, perhaps we'd best pitch camp and wait for clear weather.
Tain't a bad idea. Said we might be waiting a week.
Then we march on. We've no time to waste. Well,
Meve rode on in silence, endeavoring to work out the length of her exile thus far. A scout's call tore her from her reverie.
Your Grace, you must see this.
With a grave mien, the soldier indicated a track in the snow. The hobnail boot print was all too familiar. Meve had seen it before, upon Lyria's sandy tracks, and midst the ashes to which Edirn had been turned.
Nilfgaardian footmen.
Seethed Meve.
Marched through of late.
Interrupted Gascon.
A day, perhaps 2 days past.
The scouts had learned a Nilfgaardian caravan with an armed escort had recently arrived in Mahakam. The invaders had brought with them chests brimming with gold and jewels, then exchanged these for the finest Mahakaman-forged swords and spears. A scout gave Meve one of the coins the Blackclads had used for payment. Upon the coin's back, the Lyrian eagle.
They pay with gold from my vault,
The Queen said through gritted teeth.
for arms that will cut down my fighting men and subjects.
We might yet pursue and hunt them down,
Said Reynard, a spark in his eye.
and make certain Eddahi never lays hands on those weapons.
You might, I can.
Piped up Gabor, who had been listening to their exchange.
But you might also recall, we Mahakamans are neutrals who assure all guests within our borders safety. True, formally speaking, the Nilfgaardians have passed outside them, but attack them a stone's throw from our gates, and you'll see Bruver's rage come out his ears as steam, and out his arse as fire.
Gabor, forgive me.
Said the Queen.
This caravan we must attack. I must stop the Nilfgaardians. And entirely apart, I should be quite content to watch Bruver spew fire.
Gabor's mouth gaped as he tried to protest, but the Lyrian soldier's laughter drowned out his grunts. Meve gave the signal to depart. Soon after, Queen and company descended upon the foe's caravan, and a battle ensued.
This could hurt. Watch your heads!
I said I wish to capture the transport!
Oh. In retreat! Getting to work.
Quiet! The Commissar will hear.
crushed by their defeat, the Nilfgaardians tossed the chests into the snow lining the road and rode off with a cracking of their whips. One chest burst open, revealing a weapon wrapped in greased leather. Gascon removed the leather and held aloft a sigil that shone with newly forged luster. He examined it from all sides, then put his thumb to its blade. Blood immediately squirted out.
Ooh! Sharp bastard,
he said, clearly impressed. Hearing these words, Gabor unexpectedly burst out laughing.
What's got you so tickled, if you don't mind my asking?
Custom holds the first words out a warrior's mouth upon seeing a sigil become the blade's name. So, congrats, you've dubbed it.
Gascon stood there awkwardly as Meve took the weapon from him.
I'd have chosen a different name personally, one with a bit more dignity. But Sharp Bastard has an undeniable charm. And I cannot wait to try it out on Nilfgaardian plate.
Aye, but perhaps nae in Mahakam.
Gabor interjected.
You've made a fine enough mess for yourselves as is. Gonna need to mend for it somehow. And that'll nae be easy.
Tidings of Meve's deeds soon reached Bruverhoog's meaty ears. And though there was no fire, despite Gabor's insistence to the contrary, there was also no doubt the Elder-in-Chief was livid. Only the Zigrin's intercession on their behalf kept the Lyrians from being thrown out of the mountains. Meve squinted and gazed off into the distance. It seemed to her that hundreds of black patches covered the peaks on the horizon. Once she had ridden up closer, she realized these were the windows of homes carved out of solid rock.
Our pride this was,
sighed Gabor.
Burra's Rump. A city carved out of mountain rock. Hundreds of miles of tunnels, dozens of steelworks, smithies and forges. Now, it's a vast lair to monsters. They ooze from underground, weave their nests, hatch their young, and when hunger hits them in the gut, they prowl down into the pass.
Meve stood at the entrance to the underground city. The monumental gate, cast in bronze, lay on the ground, folded multiple times as a scroll of paper. Out of blackened windows oozed a stench of rotting meat and mold. The queen bent an ear to hear water dripping, and, in the distance, a metallic scraping. A sound akin to chitinous scales rubbing against rock.
The soldiers await your order, your grace,
said Reynard quietly, as if he feared he would wake the beasts asleep in the caverns.
Do you recall my words as we fled Lyria?
Said Meve, turning to Reynard.
You swore you would retake your crown, even if you had to penetrate hell to do so.
Time to follow that oath.
The queen inhaled deeply and stepped forward, her sword raised and prepared to strike or parry. Moments later, it was swinging, biting, as the current tenants of Burrows Rump came out to meet her.
Oh, this stench is foul.
Yeah!
Ah! Ah, damn it! They're hatching! Place is about to swarm with creepers!
Though wounded, Meve approached the Shaelmar, which lay writhing on the ground. She then ran her sword through its heart, finishing it. Yet so spent was she that she lacked the strength to pull her blade from between the plates of the chitinous armor.
The beast near took me.
She whispered.
It was very close.
The Lyrians reached a vast hall that had once served the clans as their meeting room. The stone benches were covered in sticky slime and insectoid eggs, while bats of varying size hung from the crystal chandeliers. Gascon rummaged through old, weathered bones, surely hoping to find something of value. Gabor, in turn, was at a shut and locked door, grappling with it as if it were a deadly beast. The door finally gave way with a sigh, and the dwarf raised his arms in a triumphant gesture.
It's a storeroom. Should hold miners' tools aplenty,
he said, enthused.
Some barrels of alchemical brews in here too. Lucky there's no sign of moisture. They haven't soaked through. All's we've got to do is roll them out into the corridor and set a bit of fire to them. And whoomph! We'll have sealed the beasts off from the pass once and for all.
Meve treated the dwarves' instructions as hallowed. Soon after, the mountains trembled from a powerful explosion. Rubble came down and blocked the tunnels. They say the plumes of smoke escaping the window openings in the rock could be seen as far as Aldersburg. Dark clouds hovered over the horizon, and a strong gale snapped their banners.
Damn it, a storm's coming. Gabor! Take us to the nearest settlement. We must seek shelter.
Soon the Lyrians arrived in Stuhlkamp. The town square proved full of folk. Several dozen dwarves, laden with large sacks and satchels, stood about in smaller groups. When a thick snow began to fall, the dwarves cheered. Tears streamed down the cheeks of several, but Meve could not tell if they issued from some fortuitous occurrence, or if the strong wind had wrung moisture from their eyes.
What is it we witness? Why do they rejoice at a snowstorm?
Asked Meve, pulling her hood over her head.
Well, the blizzard's good cause to postpone their expedition by another day.
Gabor responded.
See, they've been conscripted by drawn lots to be settlers. Found homes in a village in Blackbrook Vale. 7 expeditions have gone that way already, and none survived longer than a year. Valley's cursed. No two ways about it.
Intrigued, Meve proceeded to speak with the settlers' leader. He confirmed Gabor's claim. He had buried many a previous colonist. All had been abnormally thin, pale, prematurely greyed, as if some wraith had drawn the lifeblood out of them. Once the dwarf had finished his tale, he gripped the Queen's hand firmly, and promising a generous reward, begged that she and her Lyrians accompany the expedition to Blackbrook Valley.
Tain't far. Mere few leagues north along the main road. We'll make the march much easier to ken with the whole army, in case of any danger.
I know not how useful our swords can be against curses and spectres,
said Meve.
But leave you bereft and in need I will not. We shall march with you into Blackbrook Vale and see to it that you are safely arrived. Then we will march on.
The dwarf sped off to announce the good tidings to his settler brethren. By the time the blizzard had abated, they were ready to march.
What is this place?
Blackbrook Vale.
Quite lovely.
Aye, and damned dangerous. Keep your arms at the ready.
Blackbrook Vale. The name itself embodied infamy. Meve arrived expecting misty ravines, decrepit trees bound in spiders' webs and swarms of bats. What she saw was a warmly gurgling stream and the valley's gentle slopes blanketed in crocus blooms. Only a village of abandoned, ruined huts and a cemetery stretching to the horizon behind it attested to the valley's grim past.
The village seems shrouded in a guise. Be not deceived,
said the Queen.
Reynard! Some men to search the environs for any sign of life.
The blood-curdling roar that came from the ruins a moment later proved the Queen's caution warranted beyond any doubt.
Protect the settlers! I'll fight to my last breath!
Quick and painful this'll be.
Anything among slings, they hide well.
Following the victory, the settlers' hopes seemed renewed. Could the beasts they felled have killed the previous lot of colonists? Perhaps the curse that had long hung over Blackbrook Vale was at last broken.
We thank ye, your majesty.
The settlers' leader said, slipping the satchel from his shoulder.
You've granted us new hope. And a new home.
The dwarves rolled up their sleeves at once and set about repairing the cottages. Sounds of hammering, sawing and chopping filled the valley, accompanied by a steady stream of dwarven song. Meve left Blackbrook Vale, her spirits soaring. How great was her subsequent shock when the elders summoned dwarves for another expedition to the valley. It seemed the settlers Meve had escorted had met the same fate as the colonists who had preceded them. Yet what had killed either group would never be known. The sound of approaching hoofbeats made Meve turn to see Reynard spurring on his panting horse, galloping at a breakneck speed towards her.
Ill tidings I bring, your grace.
Clearly. Glad tidings never arrive with such urgency.
Our scouts captured a Nilfgaardian messenger. He was traveling in disguise, and by night. When he realized his capture was imminent, he strove to destroy the letters he carried. We were able to salvage some, in parts.
Anything of interest?
Yes, there is, I fear. Your Majesty, you must listen. Consider your offer accepted. Direct Meve and her force to the agreed site. We await their arrival. Your reward shall be as agreed. Hail, Keritsa.
A traitor. We might have expected as much. Nilfgaard has shown amply that it abides only by the rules it sets. Since they have not proved able to defeat me in the field, in open battle, they seek other means. I suppose the scroll bears no name.
It does not, your grace.
The messenger. Have you questioned him?
Naturally, your grace. Alas, he knows not to whom the letter is directed. He was to leave it in an agreed spot.
I take it tidings of the whole affair have spread throughout the force?
Yes, your Majesty. The witnesses were too many to keep this fact a secret.
We must thus assume the traitor in our ranks knows it as well, and will make no attempt to retrieve the scroll. A dead end. Have we any other leads or clues?
None, I fear, your Majesty. We must be alert. Keep a keen eye on events as they unfold, and exercise great caution in forging new acquaintances.
Very well. Eyes wide open, all senses attuned. Yours in particular, Reynard.
Of course, my liege.
Meve's force neared Davor's abyss. Signs of beastly feasting were not hard to find. Countless paw and claw tracks were impressed in the blood-stained snow. Among the boulders, bones picked clean were strewn about. Gascon lifted one from the ground.
Empty inside,
he said.
Something sucked out the marrow.
Meve's soldiers feigned indifference to the grisly sight. They marched on, their stepped rhythm unwavering, a song on their lips. Yet hearing a slight tremolo in their voices, Meve knew they merely sought to drown out their fear. A moment later, a commander's horn sounded, the signal to halt. The Queen galloped to the fore of the column and found herself at the edge of a vast, round hole in the ground. She could not see the bottom. Meve drew her reins tight to prevent her mount from taking even one step forward.
What is this? A crater? A desiccated lake?
A mine of the strip variety.
Gabor explained.
Treasures we picked and shoveled for here. Diamonds. Till we happened on the beasts, that is.
What now?
Orion's a dam. Holds back a lake. If we can break it, water will rush in, fill the abyss and the tunnels from which the beasts emerge. Just need to get around the mine first. Way down's on the other side.
Meve squinted and gazed into the distance. Indeed, there was the dam, and at its foot a swarm of beasts roiled about. Her soldiers gazed at their queen expectantly, their arms at the ready. She knew well they would rush into battle, in spite of their fear.
Gabor!
Meve cried out over the whirling wind.
Have you bards here in Mahakam?
Course, your grace!
Then we shall give them good reason to compose this day, on the themes of courage, of heroism, of Lyrie! Gee up!
And with that cry, the queen spurred her mount, grabbed a banner, and raising it high over her head, rushed headlong at the horrid swarm.
There's the way down! We need to break through and destroy the dam!
Also then, no other way!
And indeed, bards sang of this battle soon after. For no claws or fangs could break through the wall of shields the Lyrians raised that day. And no scales could protect the beasts from the Lyrians' stinging arrows and blades.
Fight! Do not relent! Let us show these beasts! It is they who should fear us!
The queen shouted. In the end, the beasts turned to flee, yet Meve's force cut off any chance of escape. A solid wall of men began to push the monsters ever closer to the edge of Davor's abyss. Pressed from all sides, the horrors began slipping over the precipice, screeching terribly as they fell. Silence came at last. The queen stood at the edge of the precipice, breathing heavily, leaning on her sword. From the depths of the mine came muted growls and groans.
Let's flood the dam hole!
Hissed Gabor.
Before any other shite crawls out of it.
A rush of icy water suddenly rose, then just as abruptly plunged into the mine, flooding the pit. And where once lay Davor's abyss, now lay Davor's pond. Meve descended back into the pass, exhausted and covered in beastly blood, yet also exceedingly pleased. She was one step closer to dwarven support in the war against Nilfgaard. Once the Lyrians had put some distance between themselves and the now destroyed monster lair, Meve ordered her men to pitch camp. Then she sent the quartermaster off for food and drink. The soldiers lit campfires, then set aside their weapons. Soon after, lively music and song could be heard throughout the camp.
Your Majesty,
Reynard said from behind Meve's back.
A messenger from the Elder-in-Chief.
The queen turned to see a dwarf in a richly adorned jerkin and a shako with golden seams. She stifled her laugh into a smile and lifted her chin proudly, expecting praise and a pledge of aid in the war against Nilfgaard.
My lady, your daring deeds have come to the Elder's attention,
said the dwarf in a measured voice.
He's positively irate and demands an explanation.
Irate? But why? I and my men, we've aided you greatly.
Elder Hugh awaits at the Long Bridge. You'd be wise not to keep him there any length of time.
And with that, all the queen's enthusiasm for a celebration was instantly gone. She waited until the fires expired and the songs died down, then gave the order to march. The Lyrians rode a narrow, winding path along the rocky ridge. To one side were ice-covered boulders, to the other, a chasm hundreds of feet deep.
They could have at least erected some barriers,
complained Gascon, knocking snow from his cap.
Got plans for that?
Gabor said.
Just need to decide how high to make them.
What?
Think. Should they be the height of your average dwarf, or a human? The debate's gone on for 20 years. On the one hand, you've got...
Gabor did not finish his discussion. he was interrupted by the Barbagazi that jumped down from the rocks.
Archers, shoot! Aim for underbelly!
Meve's soldiers made quick work of the lone monster. But the sound of battle spooked the horses harnessed to one of her wagons.
Whoa there! Whoa, damn it!
The driver tried to rein in the animals, but could not. They dragged him into the chasm along with his cart and the soldiers riding it. They landed a few dozen feet below on a rocky outcropping. A moment later, Barbagazis swarmed everywhere.
Did you see how they fared? Anyone left alive?
Asked Meve, leaning over the cliff edge.
Worry more about their cargo.
Gascon replied.
They were also carrying chests of gold.
Blast. We can't get down there. Too steep and the snow keeps falling.
We can lower ourselves down a line. But without armor, shields, or heavy weapons, otherwise it will snap.
And the Barbagazis?
The Queen said, brow raised.
We shan't kill them with daggers. They're too thick of armor.
We'll have to try. Or continue on our way.
We don't even know if anyone survived the fall.
Meve said, stepping back from the edge.
And the gold. It's not worth the risk.
Meve.
Gascon said, shaking his head.
Gold is worth every risk.
For a thief, true. But not for a queen. It is decided. We move on.
The Lyrians resumed their march, trudging with extra caution across the icy rocks. The Lyrians ascended the highest section of the Mahakam range. Snow crunched under their boots, cold air stung their lungs, and the wind snapped at their cloaks. Meve wiped sweat from her brow and turned to Reynard.
There! By the rocks! We shall...
The rest of her words were drowned out by a powerful blast. The entire mountain rumbled with a low, vibrating roar. The sound grew louder, echoing off the rocks, splitting their ears. The Lyrians looked around, disoriented. Few heard Gabor's warning.
Dinna just stand there! Get behind a rock! Quick! Hurry!
Meve followed the dwarf's gaze and cried out in terror. The snow stuck to the mountainside had started to slide down the slope, sending up mists of icy dust. Before she could react, the white torrent knocked her to her knees, crushing her and smothering her into the ground. All she felt after that was all-encompassing cold and fear. Meve survived. The dwarves who ran to the Lyrians' rescue dug her out of the snow in time. Some of her soldiers were not so lucky. The Queen looked at their bodies, blue, frozen. Next to them lay dead horses, demolished wagons. The losses were enormous. Meve wiped her cheek. Her tears burned her frozen skin. Gabor spoke a while with the leader of the Mahakam Guard Patrol that had come to their rescue. His face was dour.
What? What have you learned?
I'll tell you all in good time. First, you need a warm drink, good victuals.
No, Gabor. I need to find out what in blazes happened here.
Well, it was an avalanche.
Of course it was an avalanche. I'm no fool. But what caused it? What was that noise?
Signal horns. Ours.
So you brought this snow down on us? Dwarves!
Well, aye, but, unawares.
I'm extremely curious how one sounds a horn without being aware of it. That must be quite a sight.
Meve, let me explain.
I will. And the explanation better not sound like a clumsy excuse.
See, we clean our mount regularly. The way menfolk shovel snow off their roofs. Otherwise, the whole shebang would come tumbling down on our heads. When snow's gathered deep enough, we blast our horns to cause a controlled avalanche. Then we need to, but sweep up a wee bit and the road's safe.
All well and good, but why did you decide to clean up right as I was passing through?
Wondering that myself. Schedule says next cleaning should have been a week from now. But someone asked the route to be cleared earlier.
Who?
Meve, I'll tell you. But first, promise you'll...
Who?
Hey. Ovain ep Glenvog, the Nilfgaardian emissary. Think it were meant as revenge for attacking their caravan.
The bastard. Reynard, Reynard!
Wait! Wait! I understand you're a wee bit upset, you've every right. But you'll never prove Owain meant you harm. The sly weasel will make sure he didn't dirty his own paws.
I've no such scruples. I'll find him and kill him.
And then? How'd you tell that tale to Bruva? Meve, you're justly torped, but for the love, just this once, let it go. Or you'll leave Mahakam with near a scrap to show for it.
Moments later, scouts reported Owain was camped to the north of the accident site. Meve had to decide how much she was willing to risk to get her revenge on the Imperial emissary.
For frostbite, you'd best avail yourself of some onion juice.
As Meve neared Langbridge, she ordered her bugler to announce her arrival, then retired to her tent to freshen up. Gascon was already inside, awaiting her.
I do not seem to recall summoning you.
In that case, I must tell you to fret not. Nothing wrong with your memory. I've come with no agenda. Spontaneously, call it, to chat.
Then I propose you leave. Just as spontaneously, call it. I must don fresh clothes. I'm to see the Elder soon, and I'd prefer to not smell of horse sweat.
Doubt it'd make much difference to him. And be assured, I know what I speak of. When last we met, I found myself standing downwind of him. A pungent experience.
You were saved the experience of his breath. So pungent I thought I might faint.
Well, to revive you, pinch you awake, I'm sure would be quite a pleasure.
Gascon, I beg your pardon. Ugh, I shall have nightmares now.
Not tonight. For I fear you might not sleep at all. You see, there's something you ought to know. And decidedly before you meet with Bruva. The sites we cleared of beasts, I ferreted a bit. Noted something peculiar. Any notion what it was?
None. The monumental dwarven architecture, perhaps?
Bones, my dear Meve. Dwarven bones. Now, guess what I found on them?
Wait, don't dare give me any hints. Bite marks.
Of course. After all, they'd been gnawed clean of all flesh by monsters. Incidentally making it quite easy to spot other markings. Ones made by axes and swords. To be certain, I showed the bones to our medics, and they confirmed my conclusion.
Meaning what? That the entire clan, the Fuchses,
did not perish due to an invasion of beasts from the depths. The monsters merely ate the bodies and occupied empty homes. Now, I shared my discovery with Gabor, and guess what he did? He panicked. He started to squirm, babble nonsense. I wager my right arm, he's hiding something.
Blast. Overly eager to aid us from the start he was. I might have sensed something. I shall have him summoned at once. And I thank you, Gascon. I won't forget this.
Minutes later, Gabor stood before the Queen. At first, he tried to mislead her with evasive answers, but as her pointed questions demolished one clumsy excuse after another, he had to give in.
Oi. As King Desmond said after a hefty squirt in his hose, we can't sweep this under the rug.
If you think I welcome jests in this moment, you err. My fingers itch to summon the hangman.
Right. So... 'tis true. I misled you. On our clan elder's orders, supposed to make sure you destroyed Burr's Rump and Davor's Abyss thoroughly enough to leave nae a trace.
What? Why? What did they wish to hide?
They was home to the Fuchses, our mortal enemies. They'd been a-boiling our heinies for ages, thumbing their noses, taking what they want when they want, and the Elder-in-Chief didna gie a ploughing whit. So to stop them, our clan, we did the unpardonable. The Ziggurat elders saw their chance and they...
Gods. So you were responsible for the deaths of all those dwarves?
Me? I didn't raise a finger, tried to stop them in fact.
You claim not to have taken part, but neither did you do anything to stop the massacre.
What was it to do exactly? The elders had decided, nae a dwarf would listen to me.
You might have informed the Elder-in-Chief. The guilty would have been punished.
The guilty? You didn't ken Bruva. He'd punish the whole clan. Women, children, no exceptions. Meve, Queen. I'm begging you, he canna ever learn of this. Aye, I want a hack flame too when I think what the Elder's done. But t'other way it'd bring but more pain and death.
I need to consider what's right. Meanwhile, Gascon, make sure Gabor remains our guest.
Of course. I'll let you know if he so much as rolls his eyes towards an escape route.
Bruva stood by the bridge like a statue, arms crossed, eyes squinting. Meve sighed inside. She stood little chance of having a pleasant chat.
Elder-in-Chief, sir.
No Sharon and Grayson here, lass. Ploughing humans. Always out to fix things, always end up cocking them up. You think you're due glory, do you? Monster Slayer Meve? Patroness of dwarves? Blast it. What do you think? Why didn't I exterminate those beasts myself, eh? Go on, tell me!
For you...
For I didn't want to. For something didn't fit, damn it. So I resolved to not destroy their nests and evidence till I learned the truth of who done it.
Burned it all those years expressly. Though your subjects were dying.
I didn't need no lectures from the likes of you. Justice must be served. That's worth any price. And I was close. Had leads. And now it's all gone to hell. You flooded Devor's abyss. You brought Burrow's rump down on itself. And I'll never ken who killed the Fuchses. Understand? Never!
I would not be so sure.
Sure of bloody what?
That you shall never learn the truth. For I learnt it just moments ago. 'Twas the Zigrins who killed the Fuchses.
The Zigrins? But... Hold. Aye, it would explain a lot, that. Ah, the snakes! Worms! Rogues! Why, I'll show him. All right. Got to admit you've more in that pretty head of yours than I expected, but dinna you start thinking we'll be toasting a new friendship. You want our aid? You'll have to answer our questions. My questions. Lots of them. And they're all hard, so dinna you go smiling at me yet.
Why, I wouldn't dare.
Better not. Right. Time we moved on.
Bruva set off at a brisk pace, paying Meve nor anyone else heed. The Elder's bodyguards rushed after him, then came the Lyrian force, and at its end trudged Gabor Zigrin, hands and feet in shackles. Dwarves demonstrate innovative thinking in many domains. Metallurgy, engineering, architecture. Yet there is one in which they could not be bothered. Naming. For this reason, the bridge that linked the Mahakam Pass with Mount Carbon was simply named Langbridge. Meve learned it was a thoroughly fitting name. Having stopped for a breath halfway across the road suspended over a deep chasm, the Queen could see neither end of the bridge, both concealed by thick clouds.
Amazing,
whispered the Queen.
I feel as though we traversed the very sky.
The Queen and her retinue were nearing Mount Carbon when Meve heard a cry. It was Xavier.
Hold! Hold!
Meve drew in her reins abruptly. Her mare neighed and reared, lifting the Queen above her formation of men. From that height she saw the last pier of the bridge crumbling. The dwarves at the head of the procession were unable to stop in time and plummeted, screaming into the abyss.
What's the meaning of this, gods damn it?
Bruva roared.
Fetch the engineers, now!
The Queen was striving to calm her spooked mount when she sensed something swish past her ear. Out of nowhere, a Scoia'tael band had appeared at the rear of the column. Before anyone could react, elven archers had felled the rear guard. The soldiers lay on the bridge's stone surface with arrows in their backs. Meve was trapped. In one direction lay the chasm, in the other, a fierce foe. She had no choice but to stand and fight.
At last, Rena! You are mine!
We're trapped, Your Grace, but we can try and fight our way through.
This could hurt.
Got business for me?
I recognize the colours. They belong to Eldane.
Think you ballbags can do whatever the devils you please? This is Mahakam!
No! Blederenna! She must die!
Their strength combined, the Lyrians and dwarves managed to defeat the Scoia'tael. The guerrillas had weakened the last span of the bridge, turning the crossing into a deadly trap. Had Xavier, who noticed the weakened structure at the last instant, not called out, all would have fallen into the chasm. The Lyrians managed to capture the unit commander. She stood, her head raised high, and when Meve glared at her, she did not avert her eyes.
What is your name, elf?
Abayeth mete parstwan.
She said,
Thank you, Reynard. I know well what she said. Kiss my arse, is that truly the best you can muster?
I'd rather show you exactly what I can muster. Tell them to unbind me.
You got your opportunity. On the battlefield. Will you not tell me what they call you? Fine. It's all the same to me. I'm more interested to know how you came to be here. Who sent you?
No one. It was my decision to kill you, and thus avenge Eldane. Do you remember him? The elf whom you denied a burial? Whom you left in an open field to rot? You've elven blood on your hands. The blood of the elves of the Moulderwood.
I regret the events of the Moulderwood. I did not wish those elves' deaths. Yet they left me no choice.
What choice would you give a murderer who invaded your home?
You know I envy you. To see the world solely as black or white, it must simplify things so. Enough. I've heard all I wish to hear.
But I haven't. Did you fall on your heed, elf, eh? If you want to fight humans, go on and do it. You cannot talk sense to idiots that nay here, damn it. Mahakam is and will be neutral.
You cannot be neutral. To Dwan, you are either their foe or their dog. Mahakam has stood aside, sleeping long enough. That is why we struck it in its very heart, as a call to battle. A call to brethren whom you, Elder, have kept from the world too long.
I have kept him away. I've been bloody right to do so. You want to play at war, you numpties? You want to force the Pontar to flow upstream? Gang right ahead. Good riddance, I say. Gan kill, gan die if you fancy. But God's damn it, leave us alone. Yeah, I should kill you. With my own hands. I should cut your throat, put you out of your misery. That's what you want, innit? To die? To die a stupid death? Well, I'll not grant you that. Nay, nay, I'll lock you in a tower. Sit there 3 centuries, and you just might grow a brain.
Bruva Hoog gazed after the shackled elf as she was led away. Meve expected him to continue fuming, cursing her. But the dwarf stood silent. And his old eyes, half concealed by brows bushy as a forest floor, showed not anger, but the deepest sadness. Dwarven engineers made quick work of repairing the crumbled bridge span.
Look, Mount Carbon.
Damn. And I thought Novigrad was big.
The Lyrians stepped inside Mount Carbon's bowels. Meve rode while looking upwards, admiring the intricately carved ceiling, gilded walls, monumental bas-reliefs carved from basalt. Yet this was no time to admire the sights. Bruva Hoog had summoned her to speak.
I thank you for your invitation, Elder.
My invitation? Choice term, lass. You wangled your way in here. Long I've lived, but ne'er have I seen a wench so stubborn.
With all due respect, Do you not feel like a pot conversing with a kettle?
Ha! True enough. Changes of mind didn't come easy to me, but they do come at times. Human wars concern me not at all. For so many they are, who could count them? Near a year goes by without one wanking king invading another's realm. A dog with scabies is less restless. That's why, this morning, I aimed to send you off with nothing. Mattered not what the clans were saying. Rivie, Meve, who gives a sheep's fart? But that was this morn, before that daft wench and her pups attacked. Nilfgaard supports the Scoia'tael, it's common knowledge. Nilfgaard uses them. Well, I'm nae worse, and I choose to use Queen Meve.
So what use would you make of me, if I might ask? You've a plan?
Aye, the kind dwarves like best. Simple, but sneaky. Like to give Nilfgaard a warning, you ken. If you're going to rile my dwarves, throw them into the Scoia'tael ranks, you'll regret it, aye? But I'd like to issue the warning without declaring war. All clear to you so far? So, when you march out to Mahakam, you'll find a company of our foot dwarves waiting out with the gate. Officially, volunteers, enlisting with you against my will. And you're to put them at the fore next time you face Nilfgaard. Want the Blackclads to break their teeth on our bucklers, get a taste of our axe blades. After that, dare say they'll think twice before they send more Scoia'tael into these hells.
I do not... Thank you, Elder. You restore my hope that I shall have my home back in the end.
Faith can move mountains, aye, but it can't do much about borders. I've watched you close, and must admit you're a plucky lass. That enough for Nilfgaard? Gonna be sure.
We will see. We shall know soon. I would like to march at once. So by your leave...
Nay, not granted. At once? What's that mean? Our laws are clear. Guests are to be sent off with a thundering feast. Even the humans.
Bruva, as was Bruva's wont, insisted. So the Queen accepted the invitation, but as was her wont, set a condition. The feast was to last but one night, and not, as was the wont of local custom, an entire week. All clans were to be represented at the feast, save one, of course, the Zigrins. For they had already learned their punishment. The entire clan was banished from Mahakam. An exception was made for one of their number, for Gabor, who was beheaded before the day was done. When the sun had retired behind the peaks, the underground city came alive with the sound of bugles, bagpipes, and horns. The dwarves emerged out into the central square and danced exuberantly, sparks kicking up from their hobnail boots. The usually crabby Elder-in-Chief Hoog proved a cordial host that evening.
Let's drink, lest our neck shafts grow cobwebs!
Suddenly a messenger arrived. Bruva lifted his copper horn to his ear and listened with furrowed brow.
What's that? Speak up!
When she saw a sour grin on his face, Meve knew the tidings were not good. Yet she did not suspect they pertained to her directly.
Meve, you expecting anyone?
How's that?
Runner says a delegation's arrived at Carbon. Frae Lyrie and Rivie. Got a Nilfgaardian escort.
How dare they? Traitors. Who leads it?
You'd best sit.
Who leads the delegation?
It's your son, Willem, I fear.
Willem?
Mahakam remains neutral as regards all your squabbles. I trust I needn't remind you. So I'll have no scrambling or shoving, and certainly no bloodshed. Point of fact, I'd prefer it if you...
I wish to speak to him.
I'd forbid you, but, as I said, never seen a more stubborn wench. Alrighty then, jabber away with him. Just remember, hands to yourself.
Meve spotted banners, a Lyrian eagle upon one surrounded by Nilfgaard's black rags. Her hands became fists, showing how helpless she felt. Then her son and rival, Willem, emerged from behind a row of Imperial footmen.
My. I should apologize. It seems I missed the coronation. Congratulations, my son. Who was it who placed the crown? General Epdahi?
Count Caldwell.
Ah, yes. Our elder statesman. Why have you come here, of all places? To acquire arms for Nilfgaard?
As my official mission, yes. Yet unofficially, I wish to speak with you. I trust you've had tidings from the field. Edirn turned to ash and dust. Vizimir murdered Redania in chaos. Faltus forced to strike a pact by his vassals betrayed, Henselt the same.
This limerick, will it come to a point?
Why, yes. To the same as this war. Mother, I beg you, you must see it. Nilfgaard's victory is inevitable. Surrender now, and I shall show you mercy. For later it'll be too late.
There will be no later. We shall repel them, drive them south at the points of our pikes.
This we, Mother? Who precisely do you mean? You stand alone.
An impression many might have indeed. Yet I've allies. Those long loyal, and those new.
Where, Mother? In Zerrikania? For here, in the north, why, there are none. The fight is done.
Your friends from Nilfgaard will learn that is simply not true, when their ignorance bites them in the arse.
So you aim to persist? Whatever for?
For our freedom. For independence.
Curious. I could have sworn it was for your ambition, to soothe your wounded pride. When I was crowned, a fact you deride, though that makes it no less true, I swore the good of my subjects would guide me. And a war we are doomed to lose cannot in any way benefit them.
And slavery can. You know well the Blackclads put peasants in chains, like cattle.
Reprehensible, I agree, but...
And resettlement? Forced labour? Cruel laws that make death the punishment for the slightest offences? Are those benefits? Well, answer me!
I see I will not sway you, Mother. A shame, though I take comfort in the fact I tried. And now, adieu.
Oh no, I, not you, will decide when this conversation is over.
Oh, have we anything else to discuss?
Are you perhaps aware that the Nilfgaardians tried to kill me?
What? No, I heard only about an avalanche.
Which tumbled down through no small effort of an Imperial envoy.
Never would I have agreed to such a heinous act.
I believe you.
I'm heartened that, despite all we...
I believe you because I believe the Nilfgaardians wouldn't ever have asked your opinion. Think on it, son. Are you their ally or their tool? Can you ever be sure?
I am the King of Lyria and Rivie. To serve my subjects' best interests, I am prepared to make even the most painful concessions. Might I leave now? Or is there more?
Naturally. How did you know you would find me here?
I received Nilfgaardian reports to the effect that you've been seen in the pass.
Oh, roses are red and so are your cheeks, my son. As ever when you're caught in a lie. Lyria is 2 weeks' travel hence. Had you received word only once I was here, we'd have been long gone from Mahakam by the time you assembled a force and completed the march. No. You were forewarned of our intended route. It means I've a traitor in my ranks. Another one. Get out of my sight, villain. And pray we only ever face one another on neutral ground.
Meve struggled inside not to turn and gaze once more at her son. He'd changed since they'd last faced each other, grown manlier. And he wore the crown well. The Queen returned to the banquet hall. Her advisors shot her questioning glances, curious what she had discussed with Bruver. But Meve decided to keep the details to herself. One of them wore a Nilfgaardian lead around his neck. Until she knew who, she would have to remain vigilant.
Feasting's done, Reynard. We must consider our next move.
I've thought on it, Your Grace. We've strength enough to hit the foe, but still not the numbers to face him in open battle.
So what do you propose?
This war we cannot win alone, nor even with the dwarves at our side. But if we secure a victory, small yet symbolic, we shall show the other realms of the north all is not yet lost. Thus, I propose we attack behind the front lines, somewhere well clear of any major Imperial force.
Where would you suggest?
I'm considering Angren. To begin with, a thickly wooded marshy land, always helpful in clandestine operations. Secondly, The land's strategically important, as it's the chief source of building material for Nilfgaard's fleets.
All too little, I fear. Since we require a victory that would be symbolic, we must strike where it shall hurt. And Angren...
Just recently welcomed a new regent, in the person of Count Coldwell. My third argument. Naturally, if your Majesty wishes, I'm prepared to present alternatives to this.
No need. We march at dawn.
Meve had toiled, cajoled, persuaded, and gained the dwarves' support. She left Mahakam strengthened, markedly. Even so, the Queen was in a foul mood. For it was clear a traitor, a viper, nested among the Lyrians. Someone who had conveyed the Queen's plans to her foe. From this moment on, Meve would need to weigh every word she uttered, even in the presence of her closest associates.
Your Grace, we must plot our course forward. Shall we take the western passage into Angren, or...
Not now.
When, then? Dawn approaches, yet we know nothing of where...
I will not repeat myself.
The Queen knew she would learn the traitor's identity in the end. If need be, she would tear the name from the throat of another turncoat, Count Caldwell. Meve drooled at the prospect of seeing Caldwell in chains, then passing him to the hangman.
Saddle the horses. I shall take the fore.
The time for diplomacy, for preparations and negotiations had gone. Meve was to attack her foe at last, and she could not wait to do so. At long last, Meve's force reached Angren's marshy woods. Ever been? No? Count yourselves lucky.
You certain we haven't lost our way?
Alas, here there is no way. We continue south, that's all.
South meaning the bottom.
Should you ever venture there, I offer you this advice. Do your utmost to make no noise. Poor soul. His comrades cried out, reached out, but alas, amidst frothing waters they heard bones cracking, the moan of metal bent and crushed.
What the bloody hell, what was that?
Rather not know, personally.
Hold your positions! Arms at the ready!
It was a glusty war. One of many the Lyrians would encounter along their path. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. At last, Meve and her force stood upon the Yaruga's bank. To find and punish the traitor Caldwell, they would have to cross the river. Yet the sole bridge nearby was in Nilfgaard's hands.
Your Majesty, some new reports require your attention.
Hidden among brambles, Meve watched the Nilfgaardian sentries atop the palisade. In full gear, alert in stance, they looked sharp and ready to defend the stronghold.
Blast!
Meve hissed, for she now knew Red Lobendon would not fall by surprise. A siege would be needed, and it would slow her advance. Yet there was naught she could do, as this was her one road to Angren and to Caldwell. Reynard wiped the sweat from his brow, donned his helmet, and dropped his visor with a tap.
On your command, Your Majesty.
Very well. We mustn't delay. Reynard, our plan of attack. Armoured infantry to lead and take the first salvo upon their breast, scaling ladders to follow. Afterwards...
Masterful. Truly masterful.
Interrupted Gascon.
Yet, despite the mastery, fit to be improved.
How, namely?
Hold back your force. Lie in waiting. I'll take 10 good men and open the gates for you. Wide.
And how do you aim to achieve this?
Asked Reynard.
Knock and claim to be a trinket peddler, I suppose. Or perhaps one of Lebioda's devout disciples.
Must you know every last detail? Where's the fun in that, sir?
There's none in warfare. Never.
Seethed Reynard.
For war is no farce. Your Majesty, he stands no chance. Not the slightest.
None at all, I concur. Yet his eagerness intrigues. Let's see what he can do.
Reynard did not approve of Meve's decision, this was clear, yet he dared not undermine it. The Queen's blessing now his, Gascon assembled a small force and set off, straight for the stronghold gate.
Lambs to the slaughter,
muttered Reynard, shaking his head.
My queen, it's not too late. We can always...
Shh! Look.
Already at the gate, Gascon lifted his arm in a gesture of peace, then merrily bantered a bit with the guards. A moment later, the gates jerked into motion.
But how?
No matter. The gate stands open. We must attack.
Meve raced off towards the fortress without even glancing back. She knew well her soldiers would follow.
Oh! Ha ha! The strays have come to play!
Thing about slings, they hide well.
Wise choice.
We'll catch them all! Go on then, Kazelle!
One red Lobington for you, milady. Compliments of the house.
Gascon seemed a fiend as he fought his way to the keep, then single-handedly killed the commander. Suddenly leaderless, the Nilfgaardians laid down their arms.
My, Gascon. Colour me surprised.
Pleasantly so, I trust.
Don't fish for compliments, it doesn't suit you. Besides, you know you deserve both medal and title.
I shall hold you to it, my queen.
In due course. But I must know how. What ruse persuaded the Nilfgaardians to open the gate?
Come, my delightful charms, no ruse.
Ah, I see. Not one to share secrets.
Unremarkable, as I see it. I'd hold my tongue too, were my conscience thus burdened.
I've done naught to hide my shameful past, friend. I was a brigand, indeed, yet...
Do not dare take me for a fool. You know of what I speak.
Yet I don't. Reynard, what is this? What the devils is with you?
Your Grace, in Mahakam, the Nilfgaardian letter we managed to intercept. Consider your offer accepted. Direct Meve and her force to the agreed site. We await their arrival. Your reward shall be as agreed. 'Twas Gascon who told us Caldwell had received Angren to rule. 'Twas Gascon who suggested we ride for Lobington. Here, the Blackclads willingly opened the gate, for they expected him to deliver a prisoner. You!
Yes. I might have expected as much. When captive, I asked you why you'd chosen to aid me. Your answer was odd and unconvincing.
Meve!
It's your majesty, you rogue.
What did they promise you? Amnesty? Coin in heaps?
Both. I knew Nilfgaard wouldn't parley with me as a matter of course. To be treated seriously, I needed something they valued. A stroke of luck, it was, the chance to free you from Caldwell's grip. 'Twas in Edern that we first spoke. Then came to an understanding after Rosberg's fall.
Why do I still live then? Why not snatch me under Knight's mantle, drag me to Red Lobington in chains?
Meve. I sought to sell you out, I did, and aimed to gain by it. Yet in Edern, you earned my respect. In Mahakam, my admiration. I swore then I wouldn't follow the terms of the accord I'd made. Instead, I'd let you into the fort and make damn sure the Commandant couldn't reveal the truth. Alas, seems I underestimated Reynard.
Flattery will get you knout. You, sir, are a traitor.
Oh, please, friend. You appear to me a pot that calls the kettle black.
Reynard? What does he mean?
I've no notion, your grace. Not the slightest.
Truly? Ha! And I had you pegged for a man of honor. Come now, Reynard. Who sent secret missives to Willem? Go on, you really should tell your queen.
What? Reynard?
His Highness guest chambers in Mahakam. One of my lads snuck in. Found a letter bearing the signature of one Reynard Odo.
Reynard, I beg you. Say it's not so. Tell me it's a filthy lie.
Your grace. I'd hoped His Highness and you would reconcile. To see son stand against mother rent my heart. I wish to help.
Behind my back.
Your Majesty, I sought merely to push the youth to see reason, to open his eyes.
So say you now. Yet I can't know what was in the letters. I can't know what pacts you made. And alas, I can no longer take you at your word.
I'm not alone in having deceived. Yet I am in repairing my wrong.
Meve felt a tempest rise inside her. Yet she could not release it lest it cloud her view. She would solve the problem, strike it from her mind, and resume her journey at once.
Drawn and quartered I should have you both. Yet in truth, I cannot do without your aid. Now more than ever. 'Tis the one reason I show mercy and forgive.
Your grace, perhaps made with doubt, but 'tis the right decision. I shall prove it. Thank you.
Reynard and I rarely see eye to eye, but under the circumstances, I second his every word.
Oh, shut your damn traps! And I believe you're needed in the wagon train. Now!
The Queen's wish was clear and fierce. Gascon and Reynard slid off, leaving Meve to her thoughts. From the palisade's rampart, Meve gazed out over the marshlands across the Iruga. The Queen sighed deeply. She expected great challenges in Angren. She had also expected, even hoped, to find the one traitor in her midst. But two, and both her close aides-de-camp. She felt a weight upon her heart now.
Blast it all,
she muttered.
Not the first dagger I've taken in the back. Likely not the last either. Yet to pity my lot will help not at all.
From the captive Nilfgaardians, Meve learned Caldwell was at Tuzla Castle, in Angren's very heart. A small detachment would remain at Red Lobindon, while the Queen with the rest of her force set off to face the treacherous Count.
No two ways to it. Charming this county the Blackclads granted Caldwell to rape.
Yes, a gift so lovely Caldwell could not refuse. Et Dahi, it seems, wished to be rid of the Count, so as to rule Lyria alone.
I do.
The Lyrians came to a crossroads. As Meve and her scouts conferred about the proper path to take, a footman, of a sudden, collapsed upon the muddy ground. His comrades strove to rouse him. Alas, to no avail. Meve called for a medic. One arrived, post-haste. He checked for wounds, a heartbeat, all else for which a medic checks. Then he peered down the soldier's throat. In a flash, he was on his feet, his hand over his mouth, backing away.
What's with him? What's wrong?
The Queen asked, her eyes darting between the medic and his patient.
Typhus exanthematicus, Your Grace.
Replied the physician, wiping his hands with a spirit-soaked cloth.
Typhus fever.
Contagious?
Extremely, I fear. Though not yet at this stage. The spots are but in his mouth for now. Tomorrow he'll be blotched all over. It's then the disease turns infectious.
I see. What about a cure? Is one known?
The medic looked at Meve, shook his head and shrugged. Alas, there was precisely naught he could do. But where medicine fails, magic may at times stand in. Without giving it two thoughts, Meve called for Isbel.
It's typhus, I've no doubt.
The healer confirmed.
I know a spell that could be helpful. Vigal's cleansing, we call it. It takes time to prepare and many ingredients. Rather costly, or...
No object,
said Meve.
Get to work at once.
Isbel returned from the local herbalist with herbs valuable and rare. Fern blossoms, mandrake root, comfrey seeds, and more. She then pulled from her bundle a variety of vessels, funnels, retorts, alembics, carafes. Coloured concoctions she then brewed, steam and strange odours rising from them. Hours later, after much effort, she had a few drops of a thick substance in a flask. Isbel whispered an incantation, then gave the remedy to the dying man. His tremors and fever subsided at once, the other symptoms fading within hours. At last, Meve could breathe a deep sigh of relief. In Angren's swamps, one can easily lose one's way. Thick fog fills the air, paths end without warning, dense thickets obscure the distance. The sole way to determine one's position is to climb a tree and peer out over the canopy. This duty fell to Meve's scouts, while the force halted below. During one such delay, Meve caught the words she'd longed to hear.
Majesty! Tuzla Castle! Its tower! I see it!
To her soldiers' astonishment, Meve cast off her gauntlets and started up the nearest trunk. She longed to see the castle for herself, but then she would know sweet vengeance was at hand. The climb proved tricky, as the trunk was slippery and the branches, run through with rot, were frail. Yet Meve showed herself to be skillful and spry. As a child, she had loved to scale trees, much to her governess' dismay. Meve looked out to see a mighty stone tower outlined against the horizon. Legend holds Tuzla Castle was to have had 3 such bastions. Yet King Ragbard, the fort's benefactor, had forsaken the effort when yet another stone transport simply sank into Angren's boggy roads. It was a moment of respite for Meve, a moment of quiet joy. She breathed and tasted air free of the bog stench. She took in silence undisturbed by the hum of mosquito swarms. And she relished her prospects. The coming battle against Caldwell. The soldiers stood exhausted and filthy, many with raspy coughs, all sick of the meager gruel. But with the command to advance, a new strength sparked within them. Their step was lively, a fire burned in their eyes, each hoping to spill Caldwell's entrails, then dash them upon the fort walls. Yet as they drew near the stronghold, perched atop a stone isle, their verve dwindled, enthusiasm waned. They had taken fortresses with thicker walls, taller towers, and manned by more men. Yet they'd never seen nor laid siege to a fort standing on land so ill-suited. To rush the bulwarks through waist-deep mud. Was this even possible?
Prove I was no fool to keep you at my side,
said Meve, turning to Gascon and Reynard.
A slaughter I must avoid. How will I do it?
Your Grace,
began Reynard.
Set our machines to sling boulders. At the west wall, it's weakest. 'Tis our best chance at a breach.
Our men will need cover,
added Gascon.
Reeds we must harvest and burn. Smoke will cloak us, conceal us from the castle's defenders.
Good,
agreed the Queen.
Now get to work.
Amidst billowing blue smoke, Lyrian footmen rushed through the breach wrought by Reynard's catapults. Though she had yet to forgive her companions, Meve had to admit they'd given her sound advice.
Caldwell, I've come for your head.
I knew you'd come. Your lofty pride presages another dramatic fall.
I smell a leak.
Wise choice.
No one touch him! The Count is mine!
Many of Meve's victories have been immortalized in poetry and song, but not the fall of Tuzla. Lyrians fought Lyrians. Brothers killed brothers, in rain and mud, midst a cursed swamp. Certainly nothing to inspire a bard. Near the battle's end, Meve stormed the great stone tower to which Caldwell had fled. The queen ascended the stairs, dealing blow after blow, blood cascading down in her wake. She reached the top floor to find the Count waiting, with no intention to defend himself.
If it's mercy you expect, you'll be sorely disappointed.
Mercy? I know you all too well for that, Meve. Ever vindictive and cruel.
All this from a paragon of knightly virtues. You stabbed me in the back, Caldwell, and used Willem to do so. My son!
Who agreed without a moment's hesitation? Forsaken by your own son, your flesh and blood. What's that say about you?
Oh, you tread on thin ice. Choose your next words carefully.
Spare me your threats. You'll kill me all the same.
Death can come in many ways, Count. Some quick, some slow.
My, how you strut and vaunt. Terribly sure of yourself. Perhaps too sure.
Your castle is mine. I've crushed your force. I dare say no, I'm not.
Precisely my point. Don't you see? The Empire's not one army, it's dozens, hundreds. It's what I strove to knock into that thick dome of yours. Alas, you're too much a dullard. Soon as I'd learned you'd crossed into Angren, I sent for reinforcements. They'll be here soon. 3 regiments, armed to the teeth.
Nilfgaardians seem ever to have the upper hand, yet I find the means to defeat them.
Not this time, Meve. Nilfgaard comes in numbers, 10 Imperial footmen to each and every one of yours. You'll not win, nor can you flee. Do you know why?
Enlighten me. I dare you.
But one bridge leads to Tuzla. As it happens, I ordered it raised as you laid siege. The swamps around the castle are too deep to cross. Try to rebuild the bridge, the Imperial troops will arrive before you can finish. Your men they'll slay as you watch, and then they'll wring your neck.
I wouldn't be so pleased were I you. You won't live to see this outcome.
I know that, but I take heart in the truth. Though the castle you've seized and will likely kill me, I've won. Outsmarted you, Meve. Twice now. And you know what? 'Twasn't even that hard.
With those words, with his arrogance and contempt, Caldwell had gone too far. The Queen gripped his shoulders, pushed. Caldwell stumbled backwards, then tripped out the window. A blood-chilling shriek filled the courtyard, then broke off abruptly.
Now fool me thrice. Try.
Meve slapped the dust from her hands. The traitor had met a deserving end at last. Yet this was no time to revel in the Count's demise. If Caldwell had spoken the truth, the Queen and her army were in grave danger. Meve's scouts quickly confirmed the traitor's claim. The bridge was indeed in flames, and Nilfgaardian regiments were advancing from the south. Now to confirm if there was truly no other route by which they could flee, the Queen ordered her men to ask the local peasants. One of their number, a stable hand who'd lived near Tuzla all his life, claimed a secret path led out the back of the stronghold.
King Ragbard himself ordered it built. Had him drop great stones into its swamp, one after another, like beads on a string. Bitter water covers them, so you can't see nowt at start. Can make 'em out if you go proper slow, though.
What is it?
The stones. They lead to Isgith.
A silly tale to frighten children, Meve thought at first. Then paused. For something about the man's voice made his every word believable.
None too encouraging, yet preferable to certain death. Tell me, from Isgith, will we reach the banks of the Yaruga, near Red Lobenden perchance?
Aye, your majesty. You need but head north. And pray all along the way.
Soon, Meve stood where the stable hand had said she should, at the edge of a vast marsh. Carefully, she dipped a foot into the broth and probed for solid ground. Sure enough, she found stone. One cautious step, then another. Meve slowly strode off towards Isgith. With the path to Isgith hidden from view, Meve proceeded like one blind, moving solely by touch. With each step, she could not know if she would find rock or plunge beneath the black water's surface. The Queen's soldiers followed single file, carefully mirroring her every move. The Lyrians, near the end of their strength, got lucky when a light breeze dispersed the fog to reveal dry land. The Queen let out a sigh of relief.
At last.
Meve kicked off her boots to empty them of water and mud, then promptly screamed. Her legs were in leeches, slimy, bloated leeches. Ignoring the pain and trickling blood, she frantically tore them from her legs, wishing to be rid of them. Having plucked the last parasite from her calf, Meve grabbed her boot to crush the bloodsucker beneath her heel. Yet it had already slithered off. She spotted it on the trunk of a birch where, like a very fast snail, it was climbing.
What the devils?
But Meve's words caught in her throat. Leeches and ticks in the dozens dangled from the tree's branches. Some were so gorged on blood that their skin was translucent and on the point of bursting. Meve had some difficulty muting the urge to retch. The Queen stepped back, finding it hard to believe what hung before her eyes, confused as to what it all meant. The Lyrians marched in silence, too tired to keep in step with the drums. Suddenly, the wind rose to a howl, and there was a loud crash of thunder.
Blast!
Meve leapt from her saddle.
We camp here. Pitch the tents, quickly! Quickly!
As the soldiers rushed to unload the wagons, a wall of water came down, soaking them to the bone. Later, they sat in their leaky tents, huddled, teeth chattering, violent coughs rocking their frames. The storm raged the night through, then finally passed before dawn. Meve emerged from her tent to wring out her coat. Reynard approached, his gait heavy, his face grim.
Your Majesty, several men of the 11th, a dozen or so, sought to flee last night. Sentries stopped and bound them. Now they await your judgment.
Meve fastened her still wet coat. She knew well why the men had tried to desert. They longed for their kin, had lost sight of victory, perhaps even no longer believed. Yet the marching and fighting seemed destined to go on forever. The Queen sympathized. She, too, was spent, and many doubts plagued her. Yet she knew the deserters had to be punished. The question was, to what extent? Meve entered the tent where the prisoners stood. Some of the men looked away, ashamed at their deed. Others raised their gazes to meet hers, their eyes red, tearful, pleading.
You all know the penalty for desertion.
Meve said to the soldiers bound at wrist and foot.
I ought to have every last one of you hanged. Yet, we've come far along a treacherous road. Endured hardships extreme. This I considered against your crime. You shall lose rank and receive no pay for 1 year. Now get out of my sight. Immediately!
The deserters mumbled their gratitude and rushed out of the tent, fearing the Queen might yet change her mind. Meve then left for her quarters, anger and bitterness eating her up from the inside. While accustomed to life mid swamp monsters and black magic, Angren's denizens never dared enter Isgith. The Lyrians only once saw signs of a human presence there, when they spotted a group of thatched roof huts amongst alders.
That settlement, is it inhabited?
Meve asked, turning to her scouts.
Impossible to say from this distance, Your Grace.
The Lyrians entered the village, swords in hand, prepared to fight. But not a soul nor a beast came forth. Some homes had collapsed from rot, while tall grass concealed the paths between them. Yet, someone had been there not long past, for fresh ghoul cadavers lay by the well. Meve knelt beside the corpse of one cut clear in half. The beast's killer had been exceptionally strong and wielded a razor-sharp sword.
More likely to come around.
Meve leapt to her feet. A man in thick leather armor had emerged from one of the huts. Transfixed by his cat eyes, the Queen nonetheless sensed he was rather badly hurt.
Were that true, my scouts would have blown their horns.
The man pulled out a pendant shaped like a bear's head. It hummed and twitched as if striving to free itself of its chain.
Far as monsters go,
he said, lips curling into an unpleasant smile.
Witchers aren't usually wrong.
A moment later, a scream pierced the air. Quickly, instinctively, Meve drew her sword and lunged forth.
Brooch! Seems you were right.
The chase is on!
That'll be the last of them. Should be quiet for a bit.
The Lyrians emerged victorious, due in no small part to the Witcher.
Thanks for the help. Name's Ivo, Witcher, School of the Bear.
Meve, Queen of Lyrie and Rivie.
Well, well. Didn't expect to see anyone out here. And certainly not a queen with an army in tow.
We're not here by choice.
I bet not. No one plans to pass through Isgith.
And you? What's brought you here? A contract, perchance?
That's right. Hunting a monster.
This beast you're out to slay, what is it?
Hang on. You mean to tell me you've led your force into Isgith and don't even know what lives here?
I believe I was clear. We're not here by choice.
Yeah, but now that you are here, it'll take a minor miracle to get you out. Isgith swamps, realm of a truly dangerous being. Elves call it Gwern-Iker, the Bloody Mistress. Over generations, locals twisted the name until it became Gwern-Ikora.
Indeed. I've heard it.
So you've also probably seen her beloved fruit, leeches and ticks. You'd all be wise to stay away from them.
The leeches and ticks, you called them her fruit.
It's kind of complicated.
We've time enough.
Gwern-Ikora is a little like a vampire. They're kindred creatures. Except, instead of feasting on the blood of others, she feeds them her own.
I'm not certain I understand.
They're parasites, right? She puts them on her body, feeds them her own blood. Then hangs them on shrubs and trees.
Ugh, to what end?
To other monsters, they're delicacies. Sweet, juicy, full of Gwern-Ikora's blood. Irresistible. Any beast that tastes that loses its mind, turns into Gwern-Ikora's slave. So, if your paths cross and push comes to shove, she's not gonna be alone. Find yourself fighting the whole damn swamp.
And you? Will you not hunt her any longer?
Oh, I will. Just need to prepare. Realize that today. Gotta brew some potions, blade oils. Come back in a few days.
I don't even have that much time. Nilfgaard's hordes pursue us. I must march on.
In that case, wish you luck. Lots of it.
I suppose there's no argument that would persuade you to ride with us.
Your Grace, mutations strip us of emotion, not reason.
The Witcher vanished midst the trees. And Meve simply hoped her soldiers had not overheard any part of their conversation. Caldwell had summoned Nilfgaardian support. Meve assumed they were not far behind. Yet in the unforgiving terrain, a full Nilfgaardian division could not hope to close the gap. Small detachments, however, light cavalry or footmen, could very well do just that. So when black-clad men emerged from the mist, the Queen was not surprised. She ordered her troops to fall in, form up, and brace to defend the line. Yet the attack never came. The invaders stood silent, motionless, and Meve got a closer look. They were slouched, ashen-faced, unsure of step, and covered in sores. Isgith had treated them as cruelly as any. Teetering in his saddle, the commander broke formation. He rode forth and addressed the Queen in fluent common tongue.
Half my men are wounded, the others sick. Your force does not fare much better.
True. Yet we outnumber you soundly.
Indeed. If it comes to combat, you are certain to win. But in this damp swamp, all wounds fester. Flesh is quick to rot. You will lose many more apart from those who fall.
What do you mean, precisely?
Asked the Queen, her eyes narrowing, her head tilted to the side.
We should part ways in peace. There's a war on, there'll be another chance to fight. Perhaps even face one another. But not here. And not like this.
Suddenly unsure, the Queen weighed the officer's words. Their logic was sound, though they could also prove a ruse.
Your Grace.
Xavier's voice came from behind Meve's back.
We can't let them pass. They've done only harm, and they'll not stop and go home.
So be it. I accept.
Meve answered after thinking a while.
We shall cross swords some other day, beneath a clear sky, on solid ground.
I will hold you to your word, Majesty,
replied the Nilfgaardian, then raised his arm in salute. The retreating Imperials marched past the Lyrians. Along the slim path, their shoulders nearly touched. Meve soldiers glared from beneath their brows, their eyes locked on the foe till the last vanished in the woods. Then, collectively, they let out a sigh of relief. The Lyrian force had reached the very heart of Isgith. From every branch, vine, and shrub hung leeches and ticks by the dozen. Swollen with blood, their abdomens glistened, glowing red in the misty air. Air so putrid it set Meve's head to spinning. She paused at a moss-covered boulder, pressed her flushed forehead against its cool surface. Her soldiers passed by, pallid, filthy, drained. She wished to say something, lift their spirits, but instead a cough rattled her breast. Suddenly, splashes all around Meve in the water, as if a rain of fist-sized drops had begun to fall. The Queen lifted her heavy gaze. Seemingly on command, ticks and leeches dropped into the warm, soupy waters, then clumsily wriggled off toward a dead alder grove. Meve knew at once what skulked behind the trees. Gurnikora, Isgith's mistress, Isgith's queen.
Weapons at the ready!
The Queen roared.
Close ranks!
The Lyrians quickly converged, formed a wall of shields, and crouched behind them. Terrified, they stared as a multitude of eyes flashed open midst the branches, while revolting, muck-covered beasts rose from the gurgling waters around. Meve silently uttered a prayer. Hail, Melitele, great mother, maiden and crone, ever have us in your care.
Have it the white of an eye from half a league away.
Majesty! These parasites, they feed on her blood!
We'll catch them all! The chase is on!
How quickly the scales tip.
Discipline shall bring us victory!
Of the battle in Isgith, Meve remembered very little. It seemed a nightmare, its details a haze, the sensations very real. Midst a thick fog, she fought in a frenzy, desperately hacking at the scourge that advanced from all sides. In the end, silence fell over the swamp. Its boiling waters lay calmed. The ticks and leeches were gone, while Guernicora lay among rotting leaves, covered in blood, unmoving, but still a fearsome sight.
Burn the corpse,
Rasped the Queen.
and we move on.
The soldier's eyes darted about in a series of silent glances. It took Meve a moment to realize the difficulty. They still feared it. Though the monster's lifeless body lay on the ground, they dared not go near. Were she to repeat the order, they would carry it out. Yet she did not wish to force that on them. Swallowing her own revulsion, she walked up to Guernicora's corpse and set it alight. The air soon filled with the suffocating stench of burning hair and flesh. Sparks belched out as melting fat fell on flame. Until finally, nothing was left of the bloody mistress but scorched bone. The Lyrians resumed their march towards the banks of the Yaruga. They forced their weary legs to maintain a swift pace, and stole no second glance at what they'd left behind. One day, the quartermaster approached with news to report. Alas, bad news.
Your Grace, our food stocks have near run out. And about villages, folk have naught to spare, not even to trade.
The Queen dispatched small groups of scouts. They were to scour the countryside for hunting camps, beekeepers, charcoal burners, any souls willing to trade food for coin or goods. The first scouts came back around dusk. The last 3 detachments returned not at all. At first, Meve suspected they'd fallen prey to monsters, the beastly or Nilfgaardian kind. Later, she learned the men had left naught of their belongings behind. She'd been soft-hearted toward deserters. This lot decided they, too, would give it a try. That night, Meve lay still but sleepless. Beneath thin covers, she was cold, hungry, irate. In evading Nilfgaard's banners, Meve led her force into Angren's wildest reaches. The foe could not attack the Lyrians there, yet hazards of another sort befell them. One day they reached a quagmire too vast and deep to ford. So the Queen summoned her engineer, Xavier, and called on him to build a makeshift bridge. By nightfall, he had drawn up plans.
We shall start by laying abutments, then drive piles into the mire.
The depth?
We dropped plumb lines. 4 ells.
Seen by the plans, Meve did not see as Xavier slipped a line off his shoulder. By the time she felt it on her throat, she feared it might be too late.
I long awaited this moment, when we would be alone. You die now, Majesty, and with you dies Lyria's, the whole North's will to resist. Hail, Ketzer, hail!
What died was the Nilfgaardian rallying cry in Xavier's throat. At the last instant, Gascon and Reynard rushed in to save the warrior queen, and thus proved their loyalty beyond any doubt.
Your Grace! Your Grace!
There was no answer, but Reynard could hear her breathe. Meve would live. It was several hours later when Meve finally came to. She opened her eyes, then Gascon and Reynard helped her to her feet.
Careful, Your Majesty.
I should have been more careful earlier. Damn it. If you two hadn't...
No need for words. You needn't mention it.
I couldn't disagree more. We're due for a long conversation. First of all, I owe you thanks. Second, my trust in you both has been heavily tarnished. I believe that goes without saying. Yet today you proved beyond all doubt that I can rely on you. So I thank you.
To serve under your banner, Majesty, it is an honor.
Likely I'd have put it differently, but Reynard seems to have the right idea.
Very well. We've reassured ourselves of admiration for one another enough. We've matters to which we must attend. I trust as I lay there dead to the world, you did not sit about with your thumbs up your bums. Have you at least learned why Xavier betrayed us, sided with the Empire?
In a manner of speaking, yes.
Your Grace, the rogue who lunged at you, in truth, was one Gwalter ep Luinoch, a Nilfgaardian spy.
But we found him in the rubble at Rosberg, midst the ashes.
Precisely what placed him beyond suspicion.
We suspect Gwalter enlisted with the Edanians some years past, infiltrated that army.
He had a hand in Rosberg's defence. Then, when the time was right, he lent that same hand to its demise. Caused an explosion that tore a hole through its walls. It worked, but at a price. He suffered severe burns. If not for our medics, he'd have...
Stop. So it was not elves who brought about the fort's fall as he claimed?
A filthy lie to stoke the fires of racial hatred. To stir conflict and chaos and rage that would make the realm of Edirn waver and fall.
If we're to judge by Rayla's actions, he was rather successful.
Bastard. Yet even so badly hurt, in such pain, not for a moment did he drop his mummer's act.
I've heard much of Nilfgaardian spies, Your Grace. They're trained from childhood, face constant indoctrination. They do anything for the Emperor, anything and everything. As soon as Gwalter spotted a chance to join our ranks, to be at your side, he took it, exploited it ably.
We've talked enough. We must form up, move on.
Majesty, you ought to rest. You stand swaying. Your step can't be too sure.
Only my horse needs step true.
Meve, you've just about had the life choked out of you. No time to play the hero.
I'm not Gascon. Quite the opposite, actually. These damn swamps, they terrify me. I wish to get the hell out and never, ever look back.
The Aruga lies near. I sent scouts ahead. They've secured a barge. We can sail to Red Lobendon.
Splendid. Sound the horns. We march.
Sandflies and mosquitoes blanketed Meve's face and neck. She did not bother to brush them away. She'd been in Angren long enough to know more would come in their place.
Your Majesty.
Reynard called from behind.
Our scouts have returned. We've a large force of blackclads on our tail, infantry and horsemen, and they draw nearer.
Blast!
Meve wiped away the sweaty hair stuck to her brow.
What say you, Reynard? Shall we give them a fight?
We're but a few miles from the river, where a barge awaits. It makes no sense to battle now.
Near her strength's end, Meve stepped up her pace. She could not wait to stand upon a barge deck and leave Angren's infernal bogs behind. Alas, in place of the promised vessel, they found only severed moorings.
No! No, it can't be!
Suddenly, Meve drove her fist into the trunk of the nearest tree. Fortunately, a soft and rotted one.
This isn't so!
Your Grace, have mercy. I stepped away but for a spell.
Croaked a scout, pale as a ghost.
And thieves jumped out the underbrush. Fell upon it. Whole band of them. A white-haired warrior. A minstrel. And a lass. What had a bow.
Well, is that all?
Interrupted Gascon.
No vampire sat upon an ass with no saddle. You're cocked up, man. Damn it. Meve. What now?
The Queen turned back towards the swamp. Between the trees, she glimpsed a golden sun glimmering upon a banner.
We shall discuss that later,
said the Queen, drawing her sword.
Provided we survive. Everyone, rally to me! Drive them back!
Bigger they are, easier they are to target.
Wise choice. Near the battle's end, Meve faced a black-clad officer. Nimbly dodging his strike, she countered. The Queen's sword sank deep, the hilt rattling his breastplate. A rush of hot blood covered Meve's hands. The winged helmet toppled from the officer's head, exposing a sweaty face, gasping for breath.
Win!
Before the Queen stood a ruddy-haired boy with long eyelashes. He was Willem's age, perhaps a bit older. His body slumped, then disappeared beneath the malodorous foam atop the murky waters. Meve cast away her sword as if it had burned her hand.
Majesty, what is it? Are you hurt?
Reynard said, rushing to her side.
No, I'm not. It's fine. Give the order to march. With no barge, we must walk to Red Lobington along the riverbank.
Your Majesty, we must tend to the wounded. Use the rest of the day, I wager.
We ain't time enough for that.
Interjected Gascon.
That was but the vanguard sent in pursuit to slow us down. And even so, they outnumbered us 2 to 1. What happens when the main force arrives? We must flee. Now.
And abandon the injured, to bleed to death in the mud.
Alas, Reynard, yes. Unless you'd rather we stayed and died with them.
Gascon is right. Should Nilfgaard close the distance between us, we'll stand little chance.
Whew. At least you've the sense to...
But I would sooner perish than let my men rot in this accursed swamp. The medics will tend to all the wounded. Then, what will be, will be.
I tell you what'll be.
Snarled Gascon.
Ep die, he'll take a butcher's hook and gut you. Then hang you from Lyria capital's walls. Yet, if this be your wish...
Meve waited for the medics to sew the last stitch, tie off the last bandage. Only then did she order her force to move out. At the column's end, upon stretchers, lay those without the strength to walk, consumed by fever, dazed or unconscious, dying. Fatigued and laden with the wounded, the Lyrians moved slow as molasses. Soon, Nilfgaard's forward elements had caught up. The black-clads nipped at the Lyrians' tail with arrow volleys from the cover of trees and occasional forays by cavalry. They were in no hurry. They could torment their foes, weaken their spirit before the final clash. At long last, Meve spotted a dark form spanning the river's course, Red Lobington's bridge. Just a brief stretch more, and the Lyrians would find themselves beyond the invaders' grasp, free and clear of bogs, and the beasts that prowled them. Yet joy at this sight soon gave way to despair. The bridge was dark, black, from the horde of Nilfgaardians that held it. Clearly the Blackclads had divined the path of Meve's flight, and had cut off her last means of escape.
That's it. We're dead men. All! They'll cut us down to the last!
Meve shut her eyes, felt them sting with fatigue. She knew when she turned she could not show her men 1 ounce of fear, 1 pinch of doubt. She gripped her reins tightly. The leather dug into her skin, helping her hold back her tears. And when the Queen finally spoke, her voice was strong and boomed over the river's roar.
I know what you wish to hear.
The Queen began.
That the gods watch over us. That we'll come through the fray unharmed. That a friendly force is but moments away. Those would be lies. The truth is as bitter as it is undeniable. We stand cornered. Cannot win this fight. Cannot flee it. We can but choose how to die. Hanged from the boughs like common criminals. Or weapons in hand, like the fighters we are. I've made my choice. Time you made yours!
With that cry, Meve broke for the bridge toward a forest of spears into a deluge of arrows. She let the tears fall from her eyes. Tears of rage, fear, fatigue. It was not until she'd almost reached the enemy line that she dared glance backward. And she saw she was not alone.
Defend the Queen! For Lyria!
barbarians.
We may die here today, but not on our hands and knees!
I warned you.
You mad? Don't say that!
Don't shoot! Don't shoot! We're friend, not foe!
Damn it, just gets better and better.
To the bridge! Cut the way back to the bridge! Bolster the defense!
Meve was victorious on the banks of the Yaruga, but paid dearly for it. She lost a host of men and suffered harm herself. Yet she'd have been doomed, if not for a certain white-haired witcher. Meve longed to meet her mysterious savior and set off in search of him as soon as the battle dust had settled. She found him with the field surgeon and learned he was none other than the witcher Geralt. Yes, incredible as it may seem, I've heard the tale from several and can vouch for its truth. At any rate, making naught of the fact that Geralt's ears were ringing from a blow with a mace, Meve began immediately to interrogate him.
You for Woodbridge?
Asked Meve, prodding him insistently. For a spell, Geralt worried his hearing was shot, but then realized the Queen had a lisp.
Worked out that way, I guess.
You guess?
Meve gagged on the blood in her mouth.
Someone hold me!
The Queen felt Geralt merited the highest honor, a knighthood. Another monarch might have delayed until a more opportune time, but not Meve. Meve delayed nothing.
Count Odo, you, sir, do the honors. Alas, I cannot because of my tooth.
For valor shown in battle, I, Meve, by the gods' grace, Queen of Lyria and Rivia, hereby do knight thee.
Geralt of place unknown. The bridge you felled with men from Rivia. Or so you guess. I guess it falls to me to dub thee, Geralt of Rivia.
Meve had come home, though by a circuitous route, through Edern's smoking embers, Angren's beast-infested quagmires, cross Mahakam's snow-capped ridges. But she had returned, cloaked in legend, a mighty army in tow. The moment was weighty, and not to be tainted even by Geralt of Rivia's disappearance, or dare we say desertion. The hero of the battle for the bridge was now a sought man. Yet Meve was determined to take back her realm, with or without the Witcher's aid. The Lyrians' daring escapade behind enemy lines, and the triumphant victory at the battle for the bridge that crowned it, breathed new life into the North's war effort. Bands of resistance fighters now swarmed the conquered lands, while Cedwyn and Redania, on the verge of swearing fealty to the Emperor, suddenly broke off talks with the invader. The Nilfgaardian war machine suddenly screeched to a halt, and the tide of war turned. Facing a united North, the invader had to withdraw the bulk of its forces from Lyria and Rivia. The way was cleared for Meve to retake her lost lands, defeat General Epdahi, and depose Willem. Or perhaps mother and son would not have to fight after all.
Milady, I come at King Willem's bidding.
Prince Willems.
His Majesty proposes a meeting. No arms, no escorts.
His Majesty? Whelp's barely tall enough to reach his mother's bosom. For shame!
Silence. Let him say his piece.
His Majesty, Willem I, wishes to discuss the possibility of a truce.
He wishes to surrender? Is that his aim?
Your words, not mine, Your Grace.
I've a few more on the tip of my tongue. But save them I shall for later.
Willem I's chosen the site for the parley in...
Willem I will choose nought. If he wishes to speak, let him meet me midst the ruins of Devil's Tower.
Understood, Your Grace. I'll relay your terms.
Willem's emissary rode off, serenaded by hisses and jeers. Frightened by the clamour, his horse reared and kicked. The rider forced his mount to obey with cracks of his crop, striking many more times than was necessary.
The fool. Nag'll toss him off first chance it gets. Soon as he loosens the reins.
No great loss, I wager. But tell me, your thoughts on this reunion?
Sounds a ruse to me. But I know that won't stop you.
Whence this certainty?
Come now, Meve. At the end of it all, he's your son. You still care about him, it's obvious.
You're absolutely right.
Perhaps let bygones be bygones. Perhaps it's not too late.
Only one way to know. Let's go.
Meve rode out clad in golden plate, her banners waving proudly overhead. She no longer led a band of ragtag partisans, but an army able to fend off an empire and drive its soldiers from her lands.
Never thought I'd see the day. The Queen...
Rivie. And here I feared I would see it no more.
I believed you would. I believed you could succeed. Be victorious, Your Grace.
We've not arrived just yet, Reynard. Look, black flags still flutter over the cities. We've yet much work before us. More battles to fight. More blood to spill.
Ow! Catch!
New orders? No? Ah.
There's been a mistake. I'm no mage.
The Devil's Tower. We draw near, Your Grace.
No sign of Willem yet, far as I can see.
Unsurprising. Prompt he never was.
The Queen had chosen to meet Willem at Devil's Tower, and not without purpose. The structure stood on an isle, so no foe could approach without first exposing themselves on a narrow bridge. The isle had little vegetation midst which to conceal a large force. A small unit could evade detection. Altogether, not much to fear.
No escorts were your terms,
began Gascon, with a hint of mischief.
But better safe than sorry, I always say.
What are you suggesting?
Yours truly and 4 chaps behind the walls. Give a signal, any signal, and we'll leap to your side.
Meve struggled with her conscience. There was no honor in Gascon's plan, but prudence, certainly. In the end, she nodded in agreement, though not without compunction. Willem arrived soon after, the heavily armored cavalry he had in tow clearly there to boost his courage. He left them at the foot of the bridge and rode across alone. A stiff wind from the river nearly made off with his ermine fur cloak. Willem and the mother who'd borne him stood face to face. They gazed into each other's eyes, waiting to see who would look away first. When neither did, Meve broke the silence.
Time flies, and I've a kingdom to liberate. No need to drag this out. What's this about? Tell me.
I thought my messenger already did.
Oh, he did. And how? Willem I wishes to arrange a truce. Only, Willem I is in no position to parley on an equal footing. Willem I can, at most, offer his unconditional surrender, because Willem I's losing this war.
Yes, Mother. I am. And I see that by losing I've at last made you content.
Don't play the victim. What next? Will you say you turned cloak because Mummy showed no warmth, displayed no feelings?
'Twould be unfair, any such judgment. You did show feelings, chiefly enmity, contempt. But that's not why I betrayed you. No, I simply disagreed with your choices, assessments.
I had every right to do what I considered just and good.
And I had every right to voice my view, which you ever ignored. Yet this is neither the time nor the place to discuss that. Let us parley as strangers. I'm losing, you say. And you're right. But I haven't lost yet, and have no intention to surrender. I am ready, however, to renounce my fealty to the Empire and pledge my forces to you. As long as you fulfill my conditions.
Mm-hmm. Let me hear them.
First, you will not rescind the reforms I've authorized already, any of them. Second, you will guarantee both my safety and that of my advisors. Third, I shall remain your heir, and next in line for the throne.
Impudent child. Insolent beyond all measure.
Well, I had to try. Goodbye, Mother. And may you...
Hold. I didn't say I reject them.
It's come my turn to listen.
You're impertinent, villain. As you should be. Any future king must be certain of himself and his judgments. Rely on none but himself.
Thank you. I never suspected...
I'm not done. Time now you heard my conditions. You shall remove crown and royal cloak. You shall labour from dawn till dusk. And you shall fight at the fore in every battle. Is that clear?
Yes. Yes, Your Majesty.
It's settled then. Now the road beckons.
Willem bowed, turned and walked away. Meve followed, still angry, though she could not stifle a smile. Soon thereafter, Meve's army set out towards Rivie Castle. It would not be long now before the decisive battle.
These lands, they look familiar to you?
Naturally, Your Grace. They're the venerable Count Caldwell's.
War, death, chaos. Everywhere but here. This land's positively pastoral.
Meve's force reached Cavaldon, a small, run-down town.
The Blackclads, they've a strong garrison in place.
Proclaimed her scouts upon returning from a foray.
And they stand prepared for a siege. Their stores overflow, and we've seen ballistas, scorpions.
Cavaldon can be taken,
began Reynard hesitantly.
But not without losses. Considerable losses.
A retreat. Is that what you advise?
I fear the soldiers wouldn't take to such a course. They're eager, Your Grace. They've a fire in them. Order a retreat and you could devastate morale.
Our losses may be heavy,
said Meve, drawing her sword.
But I'll make certain the vile invader suffers even more. Order the troops to prepare. We will attack.
Soon after, the Lyrians moved on Cavaldon, war drums rumbling in step to their march. Upon the walls, the Nilfgaardians stood poised to defend.
I won't leave a single city to these invader scum! For Lyria! For Rivia!
My, now that is some fancy weaponry. And it's still got that new war machine smell.
Yeah!
Order! We must bring down their walls! Crush them!
Catch!
life is mine now.
The Nilfgaardians had indeed prepared well, with grapples to repel hook ladders from the walls and long spears to rain down upon attackers far below. Meve managed on the fourth attempt to breach the defences, but did so scrambling over the corpses of her own men. The Queen was in the field tent when Reynard arrived with surprising news. To be heard over the groans of the wounded, he had to raise his voice.
Your Grace, a delegation of townsfolk. They seek an audience urgently.
Dozens of burghers stood before the tent. Between them and the Queen, a man knelt in shackles. His face was blooded as if he'd endured a vicious beating just moments before.
Who's this?
Our blacksmith, Todor.
Snarled a priestess in a frayed robe.
He betrayed you, Your Grace. Soon after the Nilfgaardians arrived, within hours in truth, he offered his labour and strength. They didn't even need to ask. Forged arms and armour for them, all for imperial gold.
Meve gripped the beaten man's beard, tugged upwards, and looked him in the eyes.
Did you forge the hooks and the tips for those spears?
I did, Your Grace.
It was fine work,
growled the Queen.
Damned fine.
Show him mercy, milady!
Cried a withered old man in a flour-spattered apron.
When the black-clad bastards captured my son, they were eager to hang him. Todor spoke for him, saved his life.
He helped me too!
Hollered a woman in the crowd.
I were hungry. He shared what little he had.
The townsfolk began shouting over one another. Some told of the blacksmith's noble deeds. Others labelled him a traitor, deserving of a cruel and violent end. Meve turned back towards the field hospital, pondering the case, then spotted her soldiers' corpses laid out in rows. Had it not been for Todor, there might not have been so many.
Mother!
Willem's voice pierced the air, replete with tension.
My offences were far graver, yet you showed me compassion.
20 soldiers died today, wresting Cavaldon from Nilfgaard's grip.
Said Meve, her tone cold and unforgiving.
'Twas your iron that felled them. 'Twill be your blood that pays the debt. 5 lashes for each of the fallen.
Todor's torturers were several, as no one man's arm could complete 100 blows. Amazingly, Todor survived the ordeal, but his body had been broken. He'd never put hammer to anvil again, and spent the rest of his days a beggar.
Your Majesty, the hut's untouched. Ripe grain in the fields, 'tis hard to believe. I feared we'd have another Edirn here, with the black-clads setting fire to all.
I feared nothing of the sort. Nilfgaard's not stupid. Lands it aims to hold it doesn't destroy. And Willem did bend the knee to the Emperor.
Broadhead now loomed before Meve and her force. Once famous for its glowing forges and clanking manufactories, the city now stood silent. Why, you might ask? Because Mahakam. Decades past, it had opened its gates to human merchants and dwarven arms, exquisitely crafted and not nearly as dear as those made by man. The caravans had simply stopped coming to Broadhead. When its black-clad garrison spotted the Lyrians approaching, they'd hastily fled, left the city's gates open wide. Yet, they did not leave empty-handed. Their convoy comprising at least a dozen wagons loaded ostensibly to the hilt.
With what might they have fled?
With something damn heavy,
replied Gascon, squinting his eyes.
Look at this. 2 horses to pull each wagon, and the wheels cut deep into the road.
Just a few months past, 'twas we who fled the black-clad hordes,
said Meve, her tone and mien betraying disgust.
Now our roles stand reversed. We are the aggressor. Well, let them run, I say. And let all Rivia see Nilfgaard tuck tail, rather than face us in a fight.
The Queen strode towards the open gates, slowly, deliberately, wondering still what spoils the invader had carried off. Crumbling walls, shattered windows, rotted wood. Broadhead was bleak, a dull shadow of its former self. As the Lyrians entered, the somber townsfolk glared at the arrivals and uttered not a word. That is, until they saw Willem and began to hiss and growl. Meve resolved to address the crowd.
Folk of Broadhead, you're free at last. The Nilfgaardian occupation is done.
Aye, and a new one starts now.
Are you mad, man? Don't you recognize our banners? The Lyrian army stands before you.
Oh, I recognise banners. Served neath them as a sergeant 15 long years. And then I came back to my hometown. Know what I found? Hardship and squalor, your grace. All had gone to shite. On account of damn dwarves. Been flooding Rivie with their metal goods for years now. Us smiths don't so much as light their pipes in their foundries no more. You call yourselves the Lyrian army. Colours and banners confirm it. Well, what about your arms? Weren't forged in us fires, but in Mahakams, by us worst foes. Hell, I even see some at knobheads in your ranks. And right behind, Prince Willem, who bent a knee to blackclads not long past. So what freedom's it you're giving us, your grace? Freedom to beg in common, not in Nilfgaard's mongrel tongue.
Beg? What do you want about, man?
There's no levy on goods from Mahakam. But without it, us workshops don't stand a chance. And ye, your grace, you wear their armour, bear their arms, and bring bearded bastards to our doorstep.
There's a war on. I do whatever I must to win.
Aye, Majesty. And you run up a debt with dwarves. A debt you'll need to repay. At the cost of your own craftsmen.
Enough. Silence. Consider yourself lucky you've a merciful queen. I'd have had your head off by now. Move along.
The time came to leave Broadhead, so Meve summoned her advisors, eager to hear their counsel. They put forth ideas, many of merit, but the Queen would decide the city's future. Meve knew she couldn't abandon the folk of Broadhead, leave them embittered, unsure of how to go on.
The time's come to bring hammer down on anvil again. Take this gold, and show the North the value of Broadhead steel.
Even with the Queen's support, the craftsmen could not compete. The dwarves of Mahakam, the goods from their foundries, stifled the city's workshops in but a few months. Meve had gambled much, but gained naught in return.
Rivie Castle. Seems our journey nears its end.
That end could yet prove tragic. We've daunting tasks ahead. Pride. It's all I ever felt pondering those walls. Yet now, to behold them from below, I truly do wish we hadn't built them so tall.
The castle of Rivie now loomed before the Lyrians. Water surrounded it on three sides, and dual defensive walls studded with podgy turrets completed its perimeter. It was famously difficult to take, and had changed hands only once. A few months before, when traitors opened its gates to the Nilfgaardians. Foreign banners waved upon the walls. The Golden Sun and General Epdahi's crest on Rivie's walls. The walls of home. There was somber silence among the troops, the glee and pride of many triumphs suddenly gone. For each knew if the Queen ordered an assault, most would lie dead by sunrise.
Your Majesty,
began Reynard in a reassuring tone.
We needn't strike quickly. We've time on our side. To prepare would be wise. 2 months, I wager. Perfectly enough. We stop supplies from getting through. They'll capitulate, I've little doubt. Or at worst, be too weak to defend the fortress.
Reynard's reasoning was sound. There was no need for urgency. Meve had the upper hand for the first time in this war.
These invaders have grown fond of Rivie Castle,
said Meve.
So let them stay and rot. Reynard, erect road barricades and guard posts between city and citadel. Gascon, seize all boats, barges, anything that floats. Stop anything from entering from the lake. Move!
Soon, Rivie Castle stood isolated from the world outside its walls. All roads leading to it were blocked, impassable. Fishing boats, a cordon, embraced the fortress on Loch Escalot. The lanterns on their bows glowed like fireflies in summer. Then, an emissary from the castle brought a message for the Queen. General Ep Dahi wished to meet, face to face, and half the way between the citadel and the Lyrian camp.
Well, well, some general,
smirked Gascon.
We've barely snapped the trap shut, yet he's already shaking in his knickers.
Be on your guard, Mother,
said Willem.
Ep Dahi I know better than anyone here. The man always has a trick up his sleeve.
We've a few of our own. Sleeves and tricks. But I thank you for the warning and concern.
Meve proceeded to the meeting point without delay. A lone rider soon appeared on the horizon. He came adorned in rich black robes, their golden trim shimmering in stray sunbeams. She'd seen him before, in Edirn, through the megascope.
You came as I requested. Good. Very good.
I couldn't possibly refuse such a courteous invitation, especially as compared to your previous missive. The art of diplomacy, you've improved your grasp.
Your realm fell quickly. I expended little strength in seizing it. This left me much time to study. But please, we must set aside this bitterness. I'd like to formally welcome you to Rivie, dear Queen.
I see you've readily adopted the role of gracious host in my home.
In point of fact, I've grown fond of the castle. Fortifications impressive, atypical of the north. Not so your brave soldiers, whom we shall pick off like ducks. I pity them, in fact.
Dry your eyes, General. Rest easy. I've no plans for a quick assault. I shall first wait to hear the rumbling in your bellies.
Remarkable. You truly believe you can win this war? I've not been in the North long, but have discovered something all the same. You don't grasp complex ideas. You know Nilfgaard is large, but your minds don't fathom its enormity. You see, for every army you defeat, another will come to take its place. One larger and better equipped than the one before. Even now, as we so pleasantly chat, Army Group East is en route to lift your siege. Due to arrive tomorrow. And do you know what will happen when they do? They will crush you against your own castle's walls, like the maddening flea you are.
A charming analogy, but get to the point. Why'd you ask for this meeting?
For this very reason. I wish to see you with my own eyes.
They did not see enough in Edirn? Are you such an admirer of feminine beauty?
You flatter yourself. No, in you, I see an animal. Game. Prey. And as the hunt's due to start soon, I needed a more detailed image of the beast I'll be...
You? On a hunt? Those delicate hands have never held spear or bow. Nout sharper than a letter opener, I wager. Tomorrow you will not be on a hunt. Tomorrow you will be at war. You best pray to all your gods you don't find me.
Without awaiting a response from General Ep Dahi, Meve pivoted and turned toward camp. Her pace was quick, despite a heavy heart. Meve's closest advisors already awaited her in the command tent. In a few brief words, the Queen gave a report of the meeting, only with great effort masking the quavering in her voice.
An army, an immense one, approaches from the west. If we meet in open battle, we stand not a chance.
Damn it! Why did no one warn me?
Our scouts were discovered, captured. It must be that.
Yes, it didn't seem right. Our way so clear, so untroubled.
We must flee? Not at all heroic, I admit, but sure as hell better than being trampled into the dirt.
Easily said, but for a problem. Our force is chiefly infantry. The army that draws near includes cavalry, several regiments. We cannot hope to escape them. We cannot hope to hide.
What do you advise?
We've two options.
Out of the question.
Or take the castle. Tonight.
Suppose for a moment it's possible. Tell me how and at what cost. Are we to scale a mountain of comrades' corpses to reach the top of the wall? I know we're at war and many die. But to command our troops to take that citadel is to condemn them to certain death.
Rivie's walls are unassailable, I fully agree. But there's more than one way to take any fort, and this fort too.
I think I like where this is going.
I know this citadel like no one else. I know its one potential weakness. The boat landing.
Wait. That narrowest of piers between the two turrets? The one where the fishermen would land?
The same. As I'm sure you recall, Your Grace, at that narrow pier's end stands a narrow door leading straight into the fortress. A small detachment could approach unnoticed, overwhelm any sentries, and get inside.
What then?
They would need to pass through the fort to the winch in the guardhouse. Open the gate for the rest of the force.
That is... suicide!
Perhaps, but as options go, we have it alone.
And I'm to choose to send folk there. Most certainly to die.
You needn't choose anyone, for I volunteer. And will take only those willing to do the very same.
Bloody wretched plan.
And you've a better one, do you?
Of course. I'll go instead.
Beg your pardon?
Face it, Reynard, you couldn't sneak past a corpse. Sound like a bloody tambourine in that armour. Apart from which, you're Meve's right hand. So you ought to be by her side when the fighting starts.
Firstly, Reynard, I'm grateful. Well done, my friend.
Thank you, Your Grace.
But truth be told, I did indeed hear you walking to the tent from the other side of camp. And yes, you know Rivie Castle better than anyone else, but the assault must transpire silently. Gascon will lead the force.
Understood, Your Grace.
Cheers, Meve. I'll try not to disappoint.
You won't, I'm sure. Godspeed you on your way, and please, try your damnedest not to die.
Gascon hand-picked his men, those most adept with daggers, not swords. Noiselessly, they glided through the dark toward the castle, the light of its lanterns blurred by the evening mist. Meve watched anxiously as the boats glided away, her heart pounding in her ears. All depended on this mission. The fate of her realms, perhaps all the north, the lives of her troops, and her own. Now there was naught she could do but wait.
Good luck,
she whispered, gazing at the fortress walls, cloaked by the dark that seemed to surround all now.
Quick and painful this'll be.
The Lyrians prepared for battle, their silence absolute, in darkness, illuminated only by the pale light of the moon. Meve was restless. She paced nervously in a circular pattern, awaiting the signal they'd agreed upon.
Blast, it's taking long. Much, much too long.
Finally, a torch's faint glow appeared atop the towering walls. It disappeared, then glowed again, and one more time around. Meve leapt in the air, and as she did so, barely stifled a cry of utter joy.
They made it! It worked! Willem! It's time! Sound the horns! Attack!
Moments later, Lyrians in the hundreds burst from the trees. The Nilfgaardian defenders loaded their catapults and ballistae. They did so slowly, convinced the castle walls remained impenetrable. Then they heard chains, grinding and clinking, and the sound sent shivers down their spines. Bewildered, they watched the main gate rise as the attacking force rushed forth. General Epdahi dispatched an elite unit to take back the winch at once. Yet he saw this was in vain and all was lost when Meve rode into the castle courtyard. Meve had begun the day known as a great warrior. Yet by night's end, legend was the cloak she wore. Her shield stopped powerful blow after blow as her blade found gaps in her foe's black armor. At first, Nilfgaardians scoured the fray in search of the queen, hoping to prove great heroes. Soon, she was their chief scourge, and they began to flee before her blade that sung their death.
Retreat! Retreat!
What was this extraordinary vigor that surged through Meve? Naturally, she wished to liberate her castle and realm, drive off the invaders, defeat the arrogant General Epdahi. But in that moment, above all else, she longed to fight her way through to the guardhouse and bring Gascon's party relief.
Follow me! Move! Move!
As she stepped through the door into the tower, the silence told Meve she'd arrived too late. Gascon's men lay slaughtered in pools of their own blood. The man himself slumped over the winch's crank. 3 arrows in his chest rose and fell with his each ragged breath. Meve tore off her cloak and pressed it against him, desperate to stem the bleeding.
Help's on the way. Don't you even think of dying.
You know...
wheezed Gascon, a slight smirk on his lips.
I always enjoyed doing things just to spite you.
Medics on the stairs in the guardhouse, steps away, heard a long, blood-curdling wail. They entered the room to find the queen kneeling, pounding the wall with her fists, her eyes flooded with tears. Gascon lay motionless beside her, covered by her cloak. The queen rose, her fists clenched, her shoulders rigid, her knuckles white. Her face betrayed no sorrow, no despair, just rage, hot as a forge, immeasurable.
Now's not the time to mourn.
Seethed Meve, struggling to stay calm.
Now's the time for war, for slaughter, revenge. With victory today, we'll recover our home, return to our kin and set our blades aside at last. Yet until victory is ours, they must drink. Drink greedily of Nilfgaardian blood!
The Lyrians were at the brink, near their breaking point. They'd followed Meve for thousands of miles, over snow-clad peaks, through forbidding swamps. They'd fought, survived countless battles at her side. And though their gazes were now weary, she knew they'd follow her into fire.
Your Grace, the Blackclads, they've hauled themselves up in the upper keep. We went to breach the wall, alas to no avail.
Meve nodded, twirled her sword, then leapt upon a mount. Her eyes spoke pure determination.
So we'll bloody well try again. This is the end, Epdahi. Do you hear me? I shall stick your head on a pike!
Nilfgaard had the upper hand, yet the black-clad spirits had suffered. They now made more use of shields than of swords. When Meve finally broke through their line, they raised their arms in surrender. Rivie Castle had fallen. It was hers once more.
Trocker! Nein to win!
Meve showed her prisoners of war mercy, knowing full well they'd only followed orders. Death would be the fate of only Ardal ep Dahi, the one Nilfgaardian who'd issued those commands. Alas, the general had disappeared. A prisoner revealed ep Dahi had fled as soon as the Lyrians had surged towards the upper keep. He had glided down to the lower castle in a wicker basket for transporting food. Curled up beneath potato skins and other scraps, he'd scurried away not unlike a common maggot. Meve cursed her luck and leaned back against a merlin. Dawn was yet a few hours off, but the horizon had already begun to glow blood red. The Nilfgaardian reserves now drew near, too late to prevent the castle's fall.
I'll get him,
muttered the queen, more to herself than anyone else.
I swear on all that's sacred I'll catch the bastard. But now we've a pressing matter to see to. Preparing the defense.
That night the war turned, with the battle for Rivie Castle as its fulcrum. Meve's great victory, not only retaking the stronghold in a single evening, but also fending off a further invading army, proved the Nilfgaardian Colossus had feet of clay. The armies of the north had united and now seemed to be on the attack everywhere. Imperial forces, while still far more numerous, lay stretched over thousands of miles. Their position was untenable, and Nilfgaard's commanders knew this. In a decisive battle, they yet stood a chance, so they gave said battle, and suffered a resounding defeat. Just a few months on from that memorable night in Rivie, the Imperial army was in utter disarray. Aldersburg, the fortress, remained a last point of resistance. General ep Dahi and what had survived of Army Group East had dug in there, this place, where Nilfgaard had triumphed grandly in the war's early days, would now bear witness to its impending defeat. It seems history, after all, has a sense of justice, or humor, or both. Though Meve had already reclaimed her realm, she refused to retire her sword just yet. For King Demavend had requested her aid in purging Edirn of the invader. How could she refuse? She owed the king a favor, firstly. Yet she also had a burning desire to settle the score with ep Dahi.
Demavend's envoy and I spoke, Your Majesty. The king has Aldersburg surrounded. He awaits and won't begin the assault till you arrive.
Good. I truly hate to miss it. Tell the troops to prepare. Gear and ire.
Of course, Your Grace.
Yes? Is there something else?
Pardon my boldness, Your Grace, but I can't help but be concerned. You don't sleep. You've the air of illness about you.
I think back to that night in Rivie often, to Gascon's death. Perhaps I made a mistake. Perhaps he didn't have to die.
He didn't, Your Majesty. He needn't have been there at all. I'm a soldier. I swore to serve you. Gascon, not so. He might have left at any time. Guilt, pity trouble you, Your Grace, I know. But he signed on willingly and knew exactly what for. Gascon gave his life for he thought you worthy of it. There's no greater proof of friendship, no greater gift one can give. Accept it, Your Grace, and remember him with gratitude, not sorrow.
You're right. I thank you, Reynard. That I needed to hear. We've talked enough. We must march on to Aldersburg.
Your Grace, if I may. Some of our comrades in arms would like a word with you. The war nears its end. Paths are likely to diverge.
I see. Thank you. I shall stop by the mess tent later.
The Lyrian army had grown into a great serpent. So much so that riding at the column's tail, Meve could not see its head. Footmen, cavalry, and archers stretched like a glistening snake between two horizons. Meve had come a long way indeed, and she felt proud, as did Willem, riding at her side. At first, the troops had eyed the prince suspiciously, if not with hatred. But they'd watched him fight for weeks now, and saw him as one of their own. Suddenly, Meve heard angry cries and the clash of steel against steel, all at the column's front.
Those ranks! To the left! Man's left! Support the flank!
Meve drew her sword, spurred her horse, and galloped forward.
Yeah!
152, 154.
Thing about slings, they hide well.
Scrubbing duty again? Oh, gods! New orders? No?
Better listen to me, old lady.
Must be an important lesson in this. But what?
Normally disciplined, determined to an extreme, these Nilfgaardians quickly broke rank and ran.
Deserters! Leaderless, Your Grace.
A scout reported.
Headed south, they was, towards the frontier.
Chained prisoners now sat along the dusty road. Meve stopped in front of one. He was ragged and unshaven. Flies had taken an interest in his poorly bandaged hand. Spotting the Queen, he lowered his head and quivered with terror.
I know you take us for savages,
Began Meve, her gaze passing over several scraggy black-clads.
but fear not. We shan't flay you alive nor eat you for dinner. And when a truce is signed, you'll be sent home, where I most sincerely hope you'll stay this time.
As the Queen mounted her horse, she barely concealed a grimace. Her thighs were sore and chafed, her hands raw from the reins. But she bit her lip and rode on, for the prize was now very near.
We'll need all of you. Treat yourself.
It would be an honor to fight at your side, Majesty.
The Lyrian corps neared Aldersburg, and it could not have been on a more idyllic day. The sun shone, birds sang, trees rustled in a light breeze. But Meve saw it as she had at the war's start. Walls illumined by a fire's glow, the cries of fleeing civilians, the stench of burning flesh. As on that day, Aldersburg was under siege. Yet this time, Eden's flags fluttered in the field, while Nilfgaard's tattered sons crowned the fort's towers. The Queen found Demoven's tent without difficulty. Made of sheets of silk edged with silver thread, it positively shone.
Seems the realm's restored to a virtuous path,
muttered Meve.
Aha! There she is! Queen Meve, savior of the North, the Sun Slayer.
Mockery I don't appreciate.
I wouldn't dare. Not my words, those. You've been painted thus in song. Master Dandelion himself wrote a ballad, The Battle for the Bridge. If you take the bard at his word, you're as fierce with a blade as any witcher.
Is that jealousy I hear?
To be perfectly honest, Meve, it is. For I hadn't the pluck nor resolve. And when all the North tucked tail, went to shite, you alone stepped up and bared your fangs. Let it be a lesson for the future to us all.
A lesson for the future? What do you mean?
My dear,
This war won't change a bloody thing, you know. Nilfgaard will be Nilfgaard, the North, the North. We'll sign a truce, the Blackclads will turn tail towards home, but the old borders don't satisfy us soul.
I'm perfectly satisfied with them, thank you. And I just wish other folk would respect them too.
You're one hell of a warrior, but you're no strategist at all. Your perspective, you've got to broaden it. Nilfgaard, we cannot allow it to regain strength and spirit, else we'll face another invasion within a decade or two. Measures are required. Preventive, preemptive, whatever the learned call it. Build an army, a vast one, wait in ambush, and when they least expect it, break their bloody spine. Just think, if we were to join forces.
Enough. I don't wish to hear it. Won't even entertain the thought. I'll help you take Aldersburg, but then I'll go home, where, God's willing, I'll live to a ripe old age.
As you wish. We can mount the assault at any time, but... My scouts report a small Nilfgaardian force approaching from the south. They've stayed off the roads, moved only under the cover of night, escorting someone.
Who?
I've no notion. Could be a mage. Devilishly unpredictable, that lot. Could wreak havoc in our ranks. Either way, before we rush at the walls, we must make certain they don't reach Aldersburg at all.
I shall see to it.
Are you sure? You've just arrived. Must be weary after the long journey.
An understatement if I ever heard one. But I wish all this to be over, quickly.
Meve set out after the Nilfgaardians immediately, a cavalry escort in tow. Her unmatched scouts, who had led the army through the mountains of Mahakam and Angren swamps, quickly found the enemy's trail.
This way, Your Grace! It's not far now!
That very same day, Meve's force caught up to the mysterious black-clad unit. Lyrian riders surrounded the foe, forcing the Nilfgaardians to halt. All fell so quiet, the creaking of taut Lyrian bowstrings could be discerned.
The common tongue. Which of you knows it?
I do, Your Majesty.
You also know who you deal with, I see. What is your name?
Kaldvin, Your Majesty.
At last. A Nilfgaardian name I can pronounce. So, Kaldwin, it seems this war will reach its end in 2 days' time at the most. 'Twould be silly to die today, wouldn't you agree?
It would, milady.
Precisely. I've spilled enough blood. I've lost the appetite for more. So, provided you don't give me a good reason to kill you, you'll walk away with your lives. Now tell me. You carry something for General Ebdahi. What is it?
A letter.
Give me the letter.
I've sworn to deliver it to General Ebdahi, or to die in the quest to do so.
Oh, very well. My translator shall read this letter, then return it to you. You shall break no vow, and who knows? You might even survive.
And if I refuse?
Guess.
So be it. I accept your offer.
Meve's translator cracked the seal and read. And as he read, his eyes grew wide as saucers. Then he whispered in the Queen's ear.
Truly. And you're certain you're not mistaken. The wonders of this world. Kaldwin, consider this your lucky day. I allow you to complete your mission, with one proviso.
And that is?
That when you hand him the letter, you will give the General my regards.
As Kaldwin and escort set off towards Aldersburg, the Lyrian soldiers looked at their queen with disbelief. To leave a Nilfgaardian to fulfill a secretive task. Meve failed to stifle a rather mean laugh. They'll understand tomorrow, she thought. General Ebdahi had prefaced Lyria's and Rivie's invasion with a series of arrogant demands. The Nilfgaardian had been impudent, as he had felt sure he'd achieve a quick and decisive victory. Yet several months on, he too received an ultimatum. One signed by Emperor Emir var Emreis himself. The missive was concise and left no room for interpretation. With General Epdahi dead, the Nilfgaardian army descended into chaos. The kings of the north, united, took advantage and struck at the foe. Their victory was complete. The Nordling forces cheered their commanders and monarchs, but for none so vehemently as the one queen among them. Many dream of achieving the impossible. Meve had done it. Through wit, determination, and boldness, she had thwarted the Nilfgaardian invasion. The queen would rule for many more years. Stern, yet ever just.
Ah! So a lass saved the North from the Blackclads?
That is one way to put it.
Well, I'll be damned. And a chap, she find herself hurt in the end?
Leave it be. Bloke's been spinning the tale all night. Story's done. Time we got some shut-eye.
Yes. Particularly as we've yet a long road before us.
Phew. Throat must be parched as old leather after all that. Except, I'm itching to know what happened to the lot of them. Reynard, Gascon.
Ah, very well. Whom shall we start with? Willem? He worked hard to regain his mother's trust and respect, took on many daring missions regardless of the risks. The lad who Nilfgaard had wielded as a tool now sowed terror along its borders, and appeared a successor most worthy of Meve. Meve spared no expense in bidding Gascon farewell. His peer lords themselves bore the casket, and soldiers in parade dress beat the funeral drums. The Duke of Dogs, a marauder, was interred with honors befitting the truest of royals. As news of the Nordling victory filtered south, Nilfgaard's inhabitants greeted it with disbelief. Returning Imperial soldiers told stories of Lyrie's cruel queen, who murdered prisoners and sullied sacred laws. They referred to her as Gvaeldet, the bloodthirsty one. Once the Scoia'tael had withdrawn from the northern realms, non-rebel elves and dwarves emerged from the woods. Though they returned to their homes in human communities, they lived in fear of their neighbors, aware that the next massacre would eventually come. And Meve? As I said, she ruled with an iron hand, not fist, and with her son's unwavering support. She could now trust him again. A great victory, greater even than Rivie's liberation. And now, if you'd allow me...
Course. Leave him be, lads. Let him get some rest. Till the time comes for the next tale.